उनके कृतित्व में सामने आ जाता है।
Hello and welcome to the Political Rumble with me, Rajdeep Sardesai. 3 days of an acrimonious confrontation in Parliament over a no-confidence motion has seen the political battle lines being drawn between the Modi government and the Congress-led opposition ahead of the big battle of 2024. A 2-hour-long speech by the Prime Minister, an equally long speech by Home Minister Amit Shah, an angry, much shorter speech by Rahul Gandhi, lots of shouting matches and even a walkout. The bugle for 2024 general elections has been sounded this week. What are the key takeaways then? On the Political Rumble, we will decode them. I'm joined on the show, Yogendra Yadav, co-founder Swaraj India, Pawan Kumar Verma, author, diplomat, former MP Rajya Sabha, Harsh Gupta Madhusudan, author, A New Idea of India and investor, Ashok Malik, partner, the Asia Group and senior political journalist and analyst, Patricia Mukim, editor, Shillong Times, is also joining us. Remember, it is Manipur and the Northeast which has been in the focus during this no-confidence motion. We're going to put specific questions and I'll take responses right at the top on the Political Rumble from each of you. My big question, my first big question, what was the most significant aspect for you of this no-trust debate? Let's get straight around the room. I'm going to start with you, Patricia, because let's get a voice from Shillong, from the Northeast. What to you was the most significant aspect of this no-confidence motion?
Rajdeep, the no-confidence motion was called precisely because Prime Minister Modi was not willing to come to Parliament. And he was evading this issue for a long time. Today, we are on the 102nd day of the violence. And it does not seem to have abated at all. Things are happening. And there is a very clear division in Manipur where the hill people can no longer come to the valley and vice versa. And therefore, there are disruptions galore, unexplainable, that people working in certain offices in the valley are not able to come back there for fear of losing their lives. And similarly, the Meiteis working in the hills have been given the option of being accommodated.
So how do you link that to the no-confidence motion? Are you saying that the no-confidence motion did not address this critical issue?
No, not these critical issues were not addressed. The Prime Minister showed that he was sad about the whole thing, but he was not specific. And you know, what hurts the people of Manipur the most is that he has not even deigned to visit that state. He sent the Home Minister, but you know, Prime Ministers are supposed to hold every state equal. If it was election time, I'm sure Prime Minister Modi would have come. He came to Meghalaya so many times in the run-up to the elections, and he has been going to the northeastern states several times as the star campaigner. But why not now?
Okay.
What is holding him back?
Okay, so you've set the stage, and I'll take short comments from all of you. Ashok Malik, respond. To Patricia Mukim, she seems to believe the most significant feature didn't address the crisis of Manipur at all.
Rajdeep, two things here. One, Manipur is a very, very disturbing situation, and very obviously, even if the sociology of Manipur is complex, even if the past has been complex, the point is, as the government of the day, the BJP in both Delhi and in Manipur, in Imphal, will take some responsibility, and obviously it's not a situation which they can completely escape responsibility from. Even if they have not caused the problem, it's a problem for them to deal with. Having said that, when you table a no-confidence motion against a government, any government, the debate can no longer remain a single issue debate, however important and serious that one issue may be. A no-confidence motion becomes a much larger discussion and debate and audit, really, of a government's performance after 4 years, or in this case, 9 years, call it what you will, on Manipur, on the economy, on various issues. So to suggest that an entire 3-day no-confidence motion and debate can be reduced to just one issue, however important that issue, would be a little unrealistic. This has become a larger issue, a larger conversation or argument over the Modi government's performance over the past 4 years, of which Manipur is one part, but only one part.
Okay, that's an interesting way to put it. Pawan Verma, your view. A quick response. What is the most significant feature you saw in this 3-day no confidence motion?
Frankly, Rajdeep, I think the no confidence motion was moved with good intentions, but the opposition set a trap and walked into it itself. I say this with sadness because the opposition probably wanted to corner the government and especially Prime Minister Modi. Exactly the opposite happened, because Manipur was not the clear focus of the no confidence motion, although many speakers, especially from the opposition, focused on it. But a no confidence motion, and here I agree with Ashok, no confidence motion allows the government prime time on television to talk about what it has achieved and why it still needs to retain the confidence of the House and the people. And the opposition should have known that the last word will go to the Prime Minister, who is, as we all know, a great orator, and he will use that opportunity to speak about Manipur in part and probably a very short part of his speech, but give a 2-hour presentation to the nation.
Right. So
about his achievements and what his ideas are. So
you're saying it's a lost opportunity?
The confidence motion did not serve.
It's a lost opportunity for the opposition.
And the opposition should have had a better strategy.
Okay. The opposition should have had a better strategy, lost opportunity.
It's a lost opportunity.
Harsh Madhusudan, your initial remark, the most significant feature that you saw in this 3-day no confidence motion.
Rajdeep, thank you for having me. My most significant takeaway from this was that unfortunately the opposition in our country does not seem to have an alternative proposal or policy agenda. As Ashok rightly mentioned, the moment you make it a no confidence motion, it cannot be a single issue anymore. You're basically going to the people through the House saying why the treasury should not be there and the opposition should be in the treasury instead. And there was absolutely no agenda on economics, on foreign policy, or even quite frankly on internal security. And I think the Prime Minister's response, probably the longest speech a Prime Minister has made on a no confidence motion, was equal part great oratory but also a lot of frustration, I think, with the opposition, because in the end it was a non-event where the Prime Minister got to count his own achievements, the government's 9 years achievements, and the opposition was literally none the wiser. It walked out around half an hour before the speech ended. And the problem remains that there is no cohesive agenda to replace Modinomics, to replace Modi's views on cultural issues, to replace Modi's views on national and internal security. And as a common citizen, seeing those debates, all I understood was Modi hatao. It's the old Indira Gandhi kind of anti-one-person thing, and there was really nothing more to it. And that was very disappointing, no matter where your partisan sympathies may lie.
Okay. Yogendra Yadav, you've heard a lot of our speakers, at least a couple of them, suggesting that the opposition's missed opportunity, they didn't have a clear focus. For you, what was the most significant feature of this no confidence motion?
Rajdeep, I think it's only fair to begin by acknowledging that increasingly our parliament is basically a theatrical function. There isn't much debate that actually happens in the parliament. And one should not increasingly, unfortunately, and that's been the trend over the years, got worse and worse and worse now. So largely people watch it for the theatrics of it. And in that sense, whatever happened was fairly predictable, honestly. There was along the most... the lines that you would have normally expected. And my sense is that even the perception of it has been so polarized. I guess some people were watching their YouTube videos of their liking, others were watching YouTube videos of their liking. I don't know if this debate actually affected the national consciousness or national mood in any substantial way. Two things, however, happened. Number one, this debate did place Manipur on the national agenda. And I think it's after a long, long time, perhaps for the first time, and clearly about the no confidence motions, one can say probably for the first time, that Northeast has been put at the center of the national consciousness. That it did succeed. It didn't succeed in getting any response from the government. What we got were very concrete allegations about past and very vague promises about future, nothing about the present. The other thing that this entire debate achieved, which has nothing to do with the debate itself, is that much greater cohesion in the opposition on the ground. So the India coalition seems to be working on the ground. These are the two things you would pick up from a debate which was otherwise fairly predictable.
Interesting aspects again there from Yogendra Yadav. I'll pick up on those in a moment, but that sets the stage really for my second question. And this is the question that's blowing in the wind. What is the narrative now for the 2024 elections? And I will link it to my third question in a way, so you're free to raise that. Will it be Modi versus Rahul again in 2024 as it was in 2019? Before I come to the panelists, I want to play out Rahul Gandhi's press conference on Friday outside Parliament on the issue of Bharat Mata and what Prime Minister Modi said on Bharat Mata, because there was an element of anger and bitterness on both sides. Listen in.
It's very interesting. For the first time, the words Bharat Mata have been expunged from the Parliament. It's an insult to those words. Whatever I said that is wrong. I have said Bharat Mata, which is an idea, which is the idea of India, where everybody lives peacefully, harmoniously, with affection, has been killed in Manipur. It's a fact. So, the word itself now cannot be spoken by the people of India. We cannot say Bharat Mata in Parliament.
यहाँ सदन में मां भारती के बारे में जो कहा गया है उसने हर भारतीय की भावना को गहरी ठेस पहुंचाई। अध्यक्ष जी, पता नहीं मुझे क्या हो गया है, सत्ता के बिना ऐसा हाल किसी का हो जाता है, सत्ता सुख के बिना जी नहीं सकते हैं, और क्या क्या भाषा बोल रहे हैं। पता नहीं क्यों कुछ लोगों को भारत मां की मृत्यु की कामना करते नजर आ रहे हैं। जो इनके मन में है वही उनके कृतित्व में सामने आ जाता है।
Sharp comments on both sides. Ashok Malik, what is the narrative therefore for 2024 elections? Is it Modi versus Rahul again in 2024, or is that being overly simplistic in a country as large as India?
Rajdeep, two things. One, a micro answer, and the second, a macro answer. The micro answer, I do believe using the expression Bharat Mata ki Hatya was a bit of a wrong number by Rahul Gandhi, and at least two politicians, MPs from allied parties, that is, parties that are part of the India Alliance, the India Collective, not from the Congress, admitted that to me as well. I do believe this will come back to be used against Rahul Gandhi in the months to come, in the election campaign to come. Where that leads to, of course, is another matter. But I think that expression was avoidable in Parliament. Having said that, look, the no confidence motion, the debate that happened, the theatrics, as Yogendra Yadav puts it, perhaps justifiably, in Parliament, are different from an actual election. Even if the results are the same, the two processes are very, very different. I think that the challenge for India remains one, of course, to find a narrative and a leader and an answer to the question of Modi and the unquestioned popularity of Modi, the appeal of Modi, which remains fairly strong from 2019 onwards. I'm sorry. What this no confidence motion established is that whatever else, Modi is not unpopular. He is, you could argue he's not as popular as 2019, he's less popular, he's more popular. That's a matter of debate. But his popularity is not under stress. That became fairly clear with this debate. Second, where does the India Alliance see opportunities for one-to-one fights with the BJP? In which states can it ensure that states that are where one-to-one fights are currently not happening? And how do the social and political coalitions in Maharashtra and in Bihar sort of pair out or establish themselves in a national election as opposed to a state election?
Okay.
These questions are still up in the air. We don't have answers to them. India does not have answers to them. India as in the coalition India. These questions have not been answered by this no confidence motion or the coordination or lack of coordination in Parliament.
In that sense, Pawan Verma, is that still the opposition's dilemma that it was before the no confidence motion and possibly over the last 9 years? How do you, in a way, combat a popular prime minister by making an election not about leadership, but about issues?
That has been my point consistently, Rajdeep, that first the opposition decided to get organized as part of a joint alliance very late in the day, when less than a year, a couple of months are left for the general elections. Secondly, if they were serious about it, and I'm sure they are, by now a secretariat would have been set up, a common minimum program at the very least would have been drafted, talks on seat adjustments would be taking place. But these meetings separated by weeks that are happening, the pace at which things are proceeding, it does not give confidence that a good idea will see a concrete implementation in time to be effective. I may be wrong. And perhaps it would be good if I am, because this country needs an opposition. But as of now, to me, it doesn't seem so. Secondly, you ask the question of Modi versus Rahul. Now, as we know up till now, this narrative is useful for the BJP so long as the Congress does not strengthen itself on the ground. An organization, a structure. You please see the structure of the Congress in many states. There are block level presidents who have not been appointed for months, if not years. Kharge Sahab has taken over only recently. But he also has to get clearance from the actual person whose voice is heeded in the Congress party, which is Rahul Gandhi. Now, Mr. Rahul Gandhi came for the debate, well-intentioned, heart in the right place. I think he could have used his 40 minutes if his aim was to build a narrative to counter the personal cult around Narendra Modi, to build up this narrative that perhaps the BJP's ideology is dividing India, and to build it up in a structured way. I think when the Prime Minister said that thoda prepare karke to aiye, I think there is some merit on it, not because the Prime Minister is saying it. You have 40 minutes. Build up the problem. Build up the harm that is being done to the nation. I mean, he used one sentence. आपने सारी जगह केरोसिन छिड़क दिए, अब एक चिंगारी लगाने को बाकी. For God's sake, the nation is listening. Explain to him that this religious divisiveness, this polarization, this hate, this violence, this lack of trust, this divisiveness is going to create the idea, bury the idea of India and divide India. I mean, I don't think he developed the case strongly enough, and towards the end became rhetorical. And as you all know, when he speaks in Hindi, he can use awkward phraseology. If his attempt was to say that Bharat Mata ko ek gehri ठेस लगी है मणिपुर में, जैसे पूरे देश में आज समाज में वो विभाजन हो रहा है, I think that would have made greater sense than to say that Bharat Mata has been murdered.
Okay.
Now, not that he meant to say that, and his press conference clarified it, but it will be interpreted like that.
I take your point. Yogendra Yadav, as someone who knows Rahul Gandhi well, you were part of the Bharat Jodo Yatra. Is that a problem? That in a way, his use of Hindi phraseology, the fact that perhaps he isn't the greatest parliamentary debater, all of this came to haunt him during this no confidence motion. And is 2024 going to be Modi versus Rahul?
First, the big picture, Rahul. Rajdeep. Election is about several things. It is about organizational stuff, as Pawanji has reminded us. It is about social coalition, as Ashok has rightly pointed out. For the moment, I'll just set that aside. I'll simply focus on the issue of the narrative that we are discussing here. The fact is that BJP has controlled the narrative for almost 7-8 years. And the fact is that over the last 1 year, its stranglehold over the narrative has loosened a bit. It started loosening with the Bharat Jodo Yatra. After that, it's the Adani issue that was raised, which made difference. Rahul Gandhi's disqualification and his re-entry has definitely loosened BJP's hold over communication, over the narrative. Karnataka elections, and then the formation of India itself. All these things have slightly loosened that narrative. Has this debate dramatically changed it? I'm not sure in either direction. I think the debate almost retained the situation as it was. I really would have wished that the whole country would notice that Manipur exists, that Manipur is burning, and that something needs to be done. The opposition did try to make it. I don't know how much of that registered in any case, because the Northeast does not figure quite centrally. So has this focus on Manipur changed popular opinions about Modi government? I'm not sure. About the Bharat Mata expression, yes, I mean, if the question is whether Mr. Modi is more proficient in his speech than Rahul Gandhi, the answer is quite obvious. But I think the simple point, the language, the body language, I think the simple point that the idea of India was being murdered is a point that was made. Does that point change the nature of national debate? I don't know. I don't think. Unfortunately, focus on the Northeast may not do that. But it did register something limited. Would the BJP want it to become Modi versus Rahul? Of course, BJP would like to do that. The gap between Modi and Rahul may have reduced. That's my sense. Maybe polls will tell you more accurately. The gap may have reduced, but Mr. Modi definitely has an advantage. Can the opposition make it Modi versus Mudda? That really is the challenge for which the opposition needs to work in the coming month or so.
Interesting. Modi versus Mudda is what Yogendra Yadav says should be the nature of the battle for the opposition. But Harsh Madhusudan, do you see elections in India becoming presidential, as in a way this no confidence motion was, at least on news TV and on the digital media? It was always who won the debate. Did Modi win it? Rahul Gandhi win it? Modi, obviously Mr. Modi, the much more charismatic performer, speaker in parliament. Do you believe that makes a difference? Is that how you think people will see the no confidence motion, and beyond that, the next few months leading into the general election, who should be my prime minister? We are a parliamentary system, 543 MPs.
I think, Rajdeep, yes, I think the nature of modern media and modern politics is leading to more decisive mandates, which is another way of saying presidential elections. I think, but that is only one aspect of it. I mean, the Modi versus Mudda physiology of Yogender, I think it's just slightly off in the sense that is exactly what was missing from the opposition's point of view. So if you take a step back and look at the big picture, this is the year India is hosting G20. It is also heading SCO, I believe. We've just come out of a terrible pandemic, and India has done better than most people expected in terms of vaccination. The Prime Minister is speaking of becoming the world's third largest economy within his third term. So that's both a policy aim as well as political confidence. And he mentioned, for example, that if you think it will not happen, please mention why. If you think it can happen faster, please help us why. If you think something else can be done. But nowhere in any of the debates was anything pertaining to the average person of the country was mentioned as a policy idea by the opposition. So if somebody is looking and they're thinking, okay, well, they just want to be in power, but what do they have in store for me? Remember Rahul Gandhi, who is the de facto unofficial leader of the Congress party, maybe the India Alliance or not, it's difficult to say at this point. He's not been a chief minister, he's never been a union minister. There is no Gujarat model or even Kerala model or any model that he can speak of as his USP if he effectively comes to power. So then what really changed? I don't think the gap between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi or any opposition figure has changed. On the topic of Bharat Mata, I think it's very interesting that Bharat Mata ki Jai is increasingly seen as a Hindutva or a BJP slogan. At the same time, there is this kind of last moment rush to reappropriate that slogan, which at one point somebody like Indira Gandhi would have been very happy to say. And unfortunately, that is completely gone to the BJP from the point of view of the opposition. And this last moment search will not really change anything. And finally, I like to simply say that on that point, for example, Mahua Mitra of Trinamool said, she was ashamed that religious priests or seers of the majority faith is the word she used, were the Prime Minister bowed down to them in the inauguration of the new parliament. Now this is the same party alliance grouping that is completely against secular common laws, but they are against a simple symbolic recognition of India's civilizational continuity, that, oh my God, how can the Prime Minister actually bow down in front of these Adhinams from Tamil Nadu? And she specifically mentioned from the majority faith, implying as if it was a minority faith, it would have been fine with her. And therefore, when you leave out the majority completely and you almost viscerally attack them, when you leave out Bharat Mata until the last moment, and then you feel it's a mudda or it's a presidential election, the simple point is for the last 9 years, the opposition has left the center.
Okay.
And the Prime Minister is making hay while the sun is shining.
Well, the sense I got about what Mahua Moitra said was the fact that the Prime Minister is often absent in Parliament, doesn't speak out enough in Parliament, but gives the photo ops when the new Parliament was inaugurated, bowing before religious figures. But yes, you could also argue that she was referring to majority faith. I don't think she was necessarily going to support him bowing before a minority faith. But Yogendra Yadav, before I go to Patricia Mukim, let's settle this narrative point. You said Modi versus Mudda. Is part of the problem that the opposition should do, is part of the problem that as long as Rahul Gandhi is there leading the opposition and is seen as a mascot now for anti-Modi forces, willy-nilly it will be Modi versus Rahul again. Even if the opposition wants to make it Modi versus Mudda, it won't become that.
Rajdeep, if Rahul Gandhi were to disappear tomorrow, what will it be? Will it immediately become Modi versus Mudda? Then it will be Modi versus a question mark. Again, the same thing would be played out. So the real question is how much of the election would be focused on the personality issue. And yes, on the personality issue, BJP has an advantage which I think is lessening, but it has an advantage. And the opposition needs to play it, whether it has the time. I do think they have the time. I do think opposition needs to speeden up things. But I don't think it's so late that nothing can be done about the narrative so far. Yes, the mudda issue, the real issues of unemployment, issues of price rise, and the most important thing about Adani, which was played out by the Congress. Rahul mentioned it. But over the last few months, it's kind of petered off. Can the opposition bring that back? These are the questions that we need to talk about. But yes, as long as it remains personality, whether it's Modi versus Rahul, Modi versus Nitish, Modi versus Mamata, I don't think it will be very different. Do you think it will become very different? Suddenly, if tomorrow it were to be Modi versus Nitish, will the entire nation swing in favor of the India coalition? I doubt it. Similar things would be raised.
Yeah, but the challenge is, of course, localizing a national election, not easy. As for Adani, of course, many opposition leaders themselves have Mr. Adani investing in their state. So will they want to make it an issue is another big question. But Patricia Mukim, let's come to you with the next question, which in a way was meant to be the centerpiece of this entire no confidence motion, Manipur. Yogendra Yadav says for the first time at least Northeast is firmly on the national consciousness because of Manipur. But is the Manipur question still unanswered? You're in Shillong in Meghalaya. But from a perspective of the Northeast, do you believe that these debates have actually put Northeast on the national consciousness, on the national map, really?
Look, Rajdeep, Manipur is not the Northeast. Every state has its difficulties, has its nuances, and we are glad that Manipur has got the limelight. But for what? See, I really want to say one thing here. Parliamentary debates are not about who has won and who has lost. I think this is a media narrative that has been created since yesterday. Now, is the media pitting one group against the other? And for India, the group called India, the political alliances, I think they are themselves in a bit of a muddle because they're not very good with their strategies. And they shouldn't have walked out yesterday when the Prime Minister started speaking about Manipur, because that was an opportunity lost, I feel. And, you know, in Parliament today, there's so much of outrage. There are so much of snide remarks which never were there in the past. And everything is lost in that din of tu me, no? So the issues that really affect us as a country are not being addressed. One of which is, what is the common man suffering from at the moment? Look at the price rise of essential commodities. Nobody is speaking about that, and they're supposed to represent us, the common people. I think hate politics has entered parliament in a big way. I would really like to appeal to people from the India group and tell them that you don't win elections by moral outrage, by frothing at the mouth, by all these polemics, and you actually don't win election by rhetoric. You'll have to show something concrete on the ground and connect with people rather than looking for the limelight in parliament.
You mentioned the word hate politics. Ashok Malik, pick up on that because, Asaduddin Owaisi was among those who referred to the hate crime, the horrific hate crime that took place in a railway compartment a few weeks ago, which somehow has got shadowed by all that has happened. Not too many people spoke about it, but it was horrific the way a railway constable has committed what by all accounts is a hate crime, killing 3 Muslims. We've had trouble in Nuh, in other parts of the country in the last few months. There is a sense that that level of hatred and polarization outside is also being carried inside parliament. And the two sides, there's a breakdown of trust. Do you get a sense that these issues are not being addressed? There's too much of anger and hate inside parliament and, dare I say, outside. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Rajdeep, I tend to agree with you that our public discourse has become rather coarse. But it's not just our politics. Quite honestly, it's even our television channels, to be honest with you, our media, the way we seem to be discussing politics across this country. I'll give you one example, since Patricia Mukim is from Meghalaya, a state my wife grew up in. And let's talk about Manipur. Manipur is, and the 7 states, if you include Sikkim, the 8 states of the region we call the Northeast, and that expression is very frustrating because it means nothing. It hides the complexity and the uniqueness of each of those states. The sociology of those 7 or 8 states, pick the one you want, collectively is more complex than the sociology, I would dare say, of the other 23 or 24 states of our country. And yet we, in our analysis, whether we come from the political sphere, whether we come from journalism, media, analysis, anywhere, we tend to simplify it. What has happened in Manipur over the past 3 months is horrific, tragic, terrible, and complex. But at its root, it is many things. It is not a simplistic Hindu-Christian riot, which is what many have sought to reduce it to. And this is also part of the problem. We tend to reduce very complex and serious issues, which have multiple dimensions, into something very simplistic as X versus Y, Hindu versus Muslim, Christian versus Hindu, Christian versus Muslim. There is a problem with the way we discuss national issues, and this problem is not limited to politicians or to parliamentarians.
I would plead also, guilty on behalf of the entire media, which also is reducing these complex issues to binaries, black versus white, and some would accuse, at least some are actually profiting from this kind of hate generated even in TV studios, digital and social media. Pawan Verma, is that part of the problem? That politicians today have one eye during no confidence motion on the viral videos. So they are also creating a template which is based on anger and hate, rather than reconciliation and empathy.
No, you're right, Rahul, but I think if the opposition sought to achieve its primary goal of getting the Prime Minister to speak on Manipur, let us assume that was their primary goal, and to have a discussion under 267, I think for that goal to be achieved, the no confidence motion route was the wrong one. I believe that, for instance, when Amit Shah agreed to a debate on Manipur, a serious debate without duration defined, every member of the opposition should have stood up and begun their speeches by first saying, putting on record that we express our deep anguish at the absence of the Prime Minister, and then gone on to focus exclusively on Manipur. And then the country would have seen a debate on a state which has been burning for 90 days. And without the Prime Minister speaking once or going to the state. Instead, they moved a no confidence motion. Now, if you move a no confidence motion and if hate is your structure, Rajdeep, let me tell you, recently in a national daily, R. Jagannathan, who is a supporter of the BJP, wrote a piece, and the editor of Swarajya magazine, where he said that forget your dreams of a 5 trillion economy if you are going to continue with this kind of religious polarization. Now, here is a BJP supporter, an insider, speaking openly about the dangers of religious polarization. If you raise a no confidence motion, build it up in a structured way. Unemployment, price rise, common man, rising inequality, authoritarianism, and social disharmony at the cost of the nation. Now, I don't think that narrative, that mudda, was built up enough. So we ended up falling flat between two stools. Neither Manipur was discussed fully,
Right.
nor were the other issues presented in an effectively structured manner. And you gave a floor at the end of the debate to Narendra Modi, who spoke for 2 hours.
Can I just
And that speech was listened to by the entire nation.
Can I just pick up from what Pawan Verma said, Harsh Madhusudan, that in a way, the fact is that there are real issues out there. There are issues of income inequalities. There are issues of polarized politics. There are issues of institutions in some way being undermined. I mean, let's be very clear. The Prime Minister listed out achievements, but the Prime Minister will not look at perhaps the darker side. The opposition tried to gherao him, but they too will not look at the positives. We are a very polarized politics. We are in a very polarized polity at the moment. Do you see a way out? I mean, purely as a citizen. I mean, these are real issues when a hate crime takes place of the kind that took place in that railway compartment.
Yes. So Rajdeep, democracies everywhere are always polarized. The question is about the extent of polarization. So, for example, if you look at Pew surveys overwhelmingly say that Indians of all religious faiths find India to be overwhelmingly tolerant, and this, by the way, happened during the Modi government's time a couple of years ago, or just last year, in fact. Similarly, if you look at the popularity of leaders and statesmen by countries, Narendra Modi has consistently ranked at the top. So there is polarization, but it's not a 50-50 polarization. The Prime Minister is remarkably popular. So the idea that we are polarized, yes, you're polarized all the time. If you go and read 19th century American newspapers, both before and after the Civil War, it would have felt like it would have been much worse. So polarization is a part and parcel of politics. But compared to other periods, compared to earlier periods, there does not seem to be that kind of Republican-Democrat kind of, for example, 50-50 on the knife's edge situation in India right now. I repeat once again that we should not get lost in this inception of narratives. The facts are that most Indians find India to be remarkably tolerant. There are obviously issues, for example, in which a Hindu procession was attacked by Muslims, and you mentioned about the train accident in which a railway police officer killed 3 Muslims. And these are all condemnable incidents like Manipur is. But in a country of 1.4 billion, you have to look at trends. And if you look at the trends, all kinds of violence, communal in the northeast, Naxal violence, jihadi violence in Kashmir, they're all on a, please pardon the pun, secular decline over the last not just 10 years, but 10, 20, 30 years.
Okay.
The Indian state is constantly winning right, left and center. And therefore, it is important, while we do this tutu meme, as Patricia rightly mentioned, that the big picture is India is rising. The Prime Minister is talking about number 3 economy. And what is the vision of the opposition to come and say, how can we make it better? How can we reach there faster? And it is surprising. You attack the Prime Minister and the party, no problems at all. But is there even 1% policy discussion? Mudda was mentioned by Yogendra. What is the common minimum program, as Pawan rightly mentioned? There is no CMP and there is less than a year out.
Yogendra Yadav, in a way, the Prime Minister referred to it. and many critics of the opposition refer to this, that there is a negativism, a pessimism in the opposition which doesn't match, according to the government's cheerleaders, the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground, Harsh Madhusudan says, as the PM says, India will be the third largest economy soon. We are a country which is getting more FDI than ever before. We are slowly, in certain key areas, becoming a manufacturing hub. Why not? Is the opposition not being able to capture the zeitgeist of this new rising India, as the government cheerleaders call it?
Rajdeep, your question contains the answers. Cheerleaders do not ever see the truth. I heard Mr. Harsh saying that the big picture is that India is getting more tolerant, that polarization is reducing. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry at this kind of things, and that someone with a straight face can say such things on national television. Probably, I don't know, I'm sure he lives in the same country that I do. Here is a country where people are going on the streets saying Musalmano ko kal se gaon mein ghusne nahi denge, ye kar denge, ban kar denge, lynchings are taking place, no is taking place. And someone can say on national television that we are becoming more tolerant, that things are becoming less polarized. Yes,
I'll let you
political
respond,
polarization, ideological polarization is one thing, and this kind of ethnic polarization, this kind of communal polarization, with clear protection from above, with clear sanction from above. This is extraordinary. I'm absolutely shocked that someone cannot see it. But allow me to say something that I wanted to say, namely about Manipur. I don't think we should get distracted by such things which anyone can come up with any time. On Manipur, if I was from Manipur and I was watching this debate, I would say, all right, for the first time they acknowledge that Manipur exists. All right, they're all talking about my state. At the end of it, what do I take away more than the anguish? Of course, the anguish. But I get to share about the past. I get to share about Mizoram. Yes, important thing, Rajdeep, is I think for the first time, I could be wrong, but I think for the first time in Indian parliamentary history, Prime Minister of this country has acknowledged that Indian Air Force had bombed Mizoram, which was such a shameful episode in our history. But that was not said for remorse. That was not said to offer an apology to people of Manipur. That was said to score a tiny, trite, petty debating point in a parliamentary debate. As a Manipuri, as a Meitei, do I feel I got assurance that, all right, things would get better? As a Kuki, do I feel that, no, I would not be called foreigner in my own land? As a Naga, do I feel that now my issues would be looked at with more empathy? If I was from Manipur, from either of these communities, or if I was from the Northeast, any other state of Northeast, I would feel like a football. And sheer indifference of the government, even at the end of perhaps the only debate of its kind in India's parliamentary history. If the Prime Minister and Home Minister of this country do not have anything to offer by way of a Chief Minister who's proven to be the most incompetent Chief Minister, nothing about by way of security forces, their presence and their conduct, where the central and the state security forces are clashing on the streets. Nothing to say about those things. This is very disappointing.
Harsh Madhusudan, quick response, because
Rajdeep,
to your point that we are a more tolerant nation.
There is a June 2021 Pew survey in which 24% of Indian Muslims, and Pew is a very reputed American survey organization with a very, very proper scientific stratified random sampling procedure, 24% of Indian Muslims said they face discrimination, and 21% of Indian Hindus said they face discrimination. There were many questions, you can go through it, and the overall picture is most Indians feel that they're living in harmony. This is a 2021 survey by Pew, number one. So these are facts, not narratives that we are inventing in our own minds. Secondly, speaking of communal violence in the Northeast, what happened in the Nelly riots? The Nelly riots happened in the 1980s. 2,000 or more people died, and there was zero accountability. I'm not saying it in the sense of whataboutery, although whataboutery is a perfectly valid tool to have accountability. The point is the trend for violence in India is consistently downwards, and I'm saying it is across governments. I'm not saying it's only for BJP or for Congress. I'm saying across governments, Indian state capacity violence has been falling. So the reality is violence is overall falling. Most Indians, including Muslims, say that they find they're living in harmony. These are facts. These are survey results. If Yogendra Yadav doesn't believe them, maybe he's living in another country.
Okay, as I said, there will be certain issues that will continue to divide us in the times in which...
I do believe in survey results. When Hindus say they are being discriminated, they are speaking about caste. Please get your basics right.
Okay, as I said, this is an issue which we will amplify later.
This is only on religion. This is not on caste.
Okay.
This is on religion.
Okay, we will discuss the wider religious polarization in future programs. But as I end with a couple of minutes, I want to know, I'm going to ask the question, who won the debate? And did any speaker stand out? Quick responses as we have just a couple of minutes. Patricia Mukim, again go first. Who, according to you, who won the debate? Did any speaker stand out?
Nobody won the debate. The people of India have lost. We've lost out in the din.
Okay, that's a very strong word, and maybe you're right. The people of India have lost out. They could have done with a better constructed debate, many would believe. Ashok Malik, who won the debate? Any speaker who stood out?
I have a more prosaic answer than Patricia Mukim. The opposition could not establish that the country had no confidence in Mr. Modi and his government. So in that sense, Mr. Modi carried the day. Speakers who stood out, actually many speakers stood out. Mr. Owaisi stood out. Mr. Modi, of course, stood out. He was expected to stand out. But I've been listening to parliamentary speeches and watching parliamentary speeches for many years, as all of us on this panel have. I was particularly impressed by Amit Shah's speech. I think it will go down as one of the great parliamentary speeches I've heard.
Interesting. Pawan Verma, who won the debate?
You know, the young Mr. Gogoi who began the debate, I think he made a structured speech. But the fact of the matter is, I would say that Mr. Rahul Gandhi missed an opportunity. Missed an opportunity to prove his credentials of being entitled to play a leading role in the opposition. And the opposition's presentations were not structured. So therefore, I have to say that the speech that was given by the Prime Minister at the end of the debate, if you ask any ordinary person, I'm not talking about its factual accuracy in every respect, or the merits of what he said, which can be questioned on many of his claims. But as an orator, there are few to match him.
Point taken.
And the opposition presented him that opportunity on a platter.
I'm running out of time completely. Harsh Madhusudan, who won the debate very quickly, and any star speaker who stood out for you?
I think the Prime Minister came across as a global statesman who the opposition could not pin down on any substantive issue. I think the best speaker by far was Mr. Amit Shah, and actually in some ways, it was almost like that he was being given the opportunity to kind of take over on many substantive issues. Like, he was relatively quiet after the CAA days on these various issues after 370 and CA. So I thought that was very interesting from a communication perspective, because he was absolutely brilliant, not just in the last 3 days, but even today in introducing these 3 new bills, reforming CRPC, reforming Evidence Act, reforming IPC. So a lot of work is happening, and I thought the way he communicated was very brilliant and perhaps better than a lot of people would have expected.
Yogendra Yadav, final word. Who won the debate? Any speaker stood out?
Rajdeep, what was at issue was too critical, too big for us to award debating points and gold medals or silver medals. The tragedy, as Patricia rightly points out, is that perhaps the only, and maybe for years to come, the only debate that took place on one part of the northeast of this country, the people of northeast lost out. The people of India lost out.
Okay, let me leave it there. My own view, 2 speakers also stood out for me. Amit Shah and Gaurav Gogoi, for the way they structured their speeches. We can disagree with their political views, but they seem to be 2 speakers who really stood out. Among others, Asaduddin Owaisi's speech was also worth listening to. and the Prime Minister and Rahul Gandhi for some of you, but for me it was Shah and Gogoi this time. Okay, so most political observers, including myself, believe this was a bit of a missed opportunity for the opposition and Rahul Gandhi, and the Modi-Shah duo carried the day inside Parliament. But there is a reality check, a fact check that we thought we'd give you. Amit Shah, in his speech in Parliament, said it was the Modi government schemes that benefited Kalavati Bandurkar, a widow from the Vidarbha farm suicides. Rahul Gandhi had met Kalavati in 2008 after her husband died by suicide due to agrarian crisis. Who really benefited Kalavati? Was it the Modi government or Rahul Gandhi? We did a fact check by speaking to her. I leave you with what Kalavati said, with the hope that our politicians will help everyone who needs empathy, whether it's in Manipur or Maharashtra. It's that spirit of empathy we need to take forward. Thanks for watching. Listen to Kalavati. Bye for now. Jai Hind. Namaskar. Have a great Independence Day weekend.
मुलं आपले 7 मुली 2 मुलं होते, तर आपले याची परिस्थिती गंभीर होती पा, म्हणून सन्यानी त्यानं आर्थिक मदत म्हणून सन्यानी केली आपल्याला. तर त्यानं 15 दिवसाच्या याच्यामध्ये त्यानं सर्व हे केलं ना, आपलं पाठक साहेबांना आपल्याला चेक आणून दिला. तर तो 52 फिक्स करून सन्यानी त्यापासून आता त्यानं आपल्याला आले तशामध्ये ते घरकुलाचं मंजूर केलं. तर आपल्याला लाईन नव्हती, ती लाईन तवाच्या तवास आपले पोरं असेच अभ्यास करत होते दिवा घेऊन, तर तवास त्यानं लाईन आणून दिली. आपल्याला खरी सर्व मदत केली राहुल गांधीनं. राहुल गांधीचीच मदत आता आपल्याला शेवटपर्यंत आपली हे करणार, आणि त्याचीच मी गावणार.
राहुल, आपने बोला कि प्रधानमंत्री ने बोला सदन में कि गृह मंत्री अमित शाह ने विस्तार से जवाब दे दिया. अमित शाह साहब ये कहते हैं कि मणिपुर के सीएम को हटाने की जरूरत इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि उन्होंने हमारी पूरी बात सुनी, और वो कभी भी कोई हमने डीजीपी चेंज किया, डीजीपी चेंज कर दिया, उन्होंने जो भी प्रशासनिक व्यवस्था हम चेंज करना चाहते थे, इसलिए मणिपुर सीएम को हटाने की कोई जरूरत नहीं.
जब मैं मणिपुर गया, मणिपुर सीएम ने जो मणिपुर में हजारों वेपन्स जो लूटे गए, वो मणिपुर सीएम के नीचे ही हुआ. तो क्या अमित शाह चाहते थे कि ये हजारों वेपन्स लूटे जाएं? हाँ संजय.
राहुल जी,
जो हिंसा चल रही है, क्या अमित शाह चाहते हैं कि हिंसा चलती जाए? चीफ मिनिस्टर उसको रोक नहीं पा रहा है. अमित शाह जी कह रहे हैं कि भैया वो हमारी बात मान रहा है, तो क्या आप चाहते हैं कि मणिपुर जलता जाए?
संगठित अपराध के लिए एक नया प्रावधान हम इसके अंदर जोड़ रहे हैं, जो अंतरराज्य गैंग और संगठित अपराध है, इसके विरुद्ध एक अलग प्रकार की कठोर सजा का प्रावधान। गैंग रेप के सभी मामलों में 20 साल की सजा या आजीवन कारावास का प्रावधान किया है, जो आज नहीं है। 18 वर्ष से कम आयु की बच्चियों के मामले में मृत्यु दंड का भी प्रावधान हमने तय किया है कि सेशन कोर्ट के जज ड्यू प्रोसीजर के बाद जिसको भगोड़ा घोषित करेंगे उसकी अनुपस्थिति में ट्रायल होगी और उनको सजा भी सुनाई। दुनिया में वो कहीं पर भी छिपके सजा सुनाई जाए। मान्यवर, इससे बहुत बड़ा फर्क पड़ने वाला है और वो सजा के खिलाफ अपील करना है तो न्याय की शरण में आए, अपने आप को भारतीय कानूनों की शरण में लाएं और अदालत के सामने जाए तो हाईकोर्ट में चैलेंज करें।
Co-powered by the new Kia Seltos, the badass reborn. Co-powered by PolicyBazaar.com, हर फैमिली होगी इंश्योर्ड। एक्स्ट्रा सेफ पॉलीकैब ग्रीन वायर।
Prime Minister Modi's Indira Barb triggers a fire.
5 मार्च 1966 इस दिन कांग्रेस ने मिजोरम में असहाय नागरिकों पर अपनी वायुसेना के माध्यम से हमला करवाया था।
Flashback on Indian Air Force strikes on Mizo rebels. Did Indira make a mistake in bombing Mizoram? Shades of grey in the 1966 Mizo bombings. Mrs. Gandhi's mistake or solid action?
क्या अपने ही देश में वायुसेना से हमला करवाना? कौन था उस समय? इंदिरा गांधी.
Big fight over Air Force's controversial strike. Shiv decodes the 1966 Mizoram bombing only on India First.
Thanks for being with me, Shiv Arur, here on India First. Let's get you straight to the headlines. After a fiery parliament face-off, Rahul Gandhi targets the Prime Minister again, accuses him of mocking Manipur. BJP says the Congress MP is lighting the fire of hatred. Showdown over Congress MP Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary's suspension. India Alliance MPs boycott last day of Lok Sabha proceedings. Aam Aadmi Party MP Raghav Chadha also suspended from the Rajya Sabha. Amit Shah introduces bills to overhaul India's criminal justice system. Death for raping a minor and mob lynching under the new provisions. Home Minister says sedition law will be repealed soon. Commission charge hits Siddaramaiah Sarkara. Bengaluru contractors allege their dues have not been paid. BJP says Congress ministers are seeking 55% commission. Deputy Chief Minister Shivakumar assures a probe. Madras High Court slams fast-track acquittal of DMK Minister Ponmudi. High Court Chief Justice exposes shocking attempt to let off the Stalin minister. Huge embarrassment for the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister. In yesterday's speech to end the no trust vote centered around the Manipur crisis, the Prime Minister provided a lengthy defense of his government's Northeast policy while also listing the decades of folly and failure regarding that part of the country, courtesy successive Congress governments. But it was one particular thing the Prime Minister mentioned that has become a furious talking point now. The Prime Minister invoked the 1966 Indian Air Force bombings in Mizoram, then part of Greater Assam, that were ordered by then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Few people even know about that operation, but the Prime Minister did use it to support his claim that the Congress's policy on the Northeast has swung between extremes, either being inert and indifferent or deploying massive force as Indira Gandhi did in March 1966. First, let me tell you what happened in 1966. Indira Gandhi was just 6 weeks old as Prime Minister of India. She had taken over after the unexpected death of Lal Bahadur Shastri in Tashkent in January that year. India had just fought a bruising war with Pakistan the previous year, 1965, and it was less than 4 years since India's calamitous defeat at the hands of China in the 1962 war under Prime Minister Nehru. This was a country in crisis that wasn't just nursing a post-war economy, but was vulnerable to the continuing manipulations of both her foreign adversaries. It was in this scenario that a violent separatist insurgency by the Mizo National Front broke out, a rebellion fully funded and armed by then East Pakistan in 1966. As the fledgling Indira government watched, an emboldened rebel chief hoisted an MNF flag, Mizo National Front flag, in the city of Aizawl. Remember, Mizoram wasn't a state back then, it was still part of Greater Assam. In Aizawl, they hoisted an MNF flag, practically declaring it a separate sovereign state. Worse, the MNF had captured key positions in both the city of Aizawl as well as Lungle, with a signature application of brutality and violence. The Indian army wasn't positioned to arrive in Aizawl in less than a day, and it was unlikely that a ground attack would go unchecked by the well-armed MNF that was now scattered through the hinterland, expecting a ground response by the Indian army. It was in this scenario that Indira Gandhi took the controversial decision to scramble the Indian Air Force. A small number of even then vintage Tufani fighters and slightly more modern Hunter jets were deployed to conduct airstrikes on the MNF positions in Aizawl. Larger transport aircraft were also loaded with explosives and used to bomb rebel positions in Aizawl. Now, two of those pilots who flew some of those missions would go on to big political careers. You know their names, Rajesh Pilot and Suresh Kalmadi. But what followed these bombings and the subsequent arrival of the army was 2 decades of an insurgency in Mizoram that saw a great deal of violence and death in that beautiful state. Peace would be achieved only 2 decades later with the Rajiv Gandhi Laldenga Accord of 1987. Now, the bombings of Mizoram were the first and the only time that Indian frontline air power has been used against its own citizens on our territory. The bombings are now seen through 2 prisms. The BJP, as clear from the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, sees the bombings as a symbol of Congress folly in the Northeast, as a decision that became necessary thanks solely to successive Congress governments letting the Mizo issue fester, failing to nip it in the bud, leaving it vulnerable to outside interference, being pushed into a corner by lack of action, and then being forced into this heavy response when there was no other way out. Mrs. Gandhi's handling of Bhindranwale later is used as a reference point to prove that her instincts in 1966 similarly failed her in the airspace over Mizoram. On the other hand, those who believe Indira Gandhi and the Congress have nothing to apologize about feel that this was decisive action. Indira Gandhi, after all, was less than 2 months old as Prime Minister when the insurgency exploded in her government's face. Was the difficult decision of lethal force on our own territory imposed on her? And is it really fair to blame her for a situation that was already at boiling point by the time she took over? What I'm trying to say, viewer, is that it will always be easy to sit back and pass judgment on decisions to use military force. The more into detail one goes into the controversial deployment of the armed forces, the more clear it becomes that there are no blacks and whites, only shades of grey. As with so many things in military history, both of the things said about Indira Gandhi's bombing of Mizoram in 1966 can be seen to be true. That her actions were the inevitable climax of her party's Northeast policy over years, and also that her actions displayed decisiveness in a situation where not acting is as controversial as issuing those orders. Now I want to get an expert view from 2 people who not only know about the operation, but have looked at it very closely from all of these prisms that I'm talking about. I'm joined by Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur. He's a well-known Air Force veteran and someone who's looked particularly closely at Air Force history. Abhijit Iyer Mitra is a senior research fellow in the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. One of his tweets has gone viral where he has said that it was wrong for the Prime Minister to call what Indira Gandhi did a blunder. Abhijit, I'll quickly come to you first because I hear we might have a weak line with you, with your permission, Air Vice Marshal. Abhijit, explain to us why you think the Prime Minister shouldn't have highlighted what Indira Gandhi did as a blunder.
So Shiv, it's very clear. I think we've been very consistent about this position throughout, that sometimes when internal security situations flare up to a point, you have to use massive force. It isn't, I'm not getting into the politics of it. I'm just talking about the application of force out here. Now, remember what the situation in the ground in Aizawl was. The Mizo National Front had surrounded the whole of Aizawl. It had been completely cut off. The attempts at, resupplying Aizawl with the Mi-4s or the Mi-8s, I forget which one, at that time had failed because the Mizos were directing fairly accurate gunfire at those helicopters. And you had to soften them up using air power, which is what was done. Because remember, the Mizos were going around killing people on the ground. Government officials were being killed on the ground at that point of time. And something had to be done. It was an emergency situation. You could not land troops there because the same way they were shooting resupply helicopters, they were going to shoot down, troop helicopters as well. And that was a risk not worth taking. It was a proportionate action taken at the right time to safeguard the territorial integrity of India. And I don't understand how an action taken to safeguard the territorial integrity of India is a blunder.
Okay, Air Vice Marshal Bahadur, how do you see it? Because, looking at history is always a difficult proposition, especially through the prism of politics. The Air Force was carrying out orders at a very, very difficult time. India had been at war just a year before that as well. How do you see it, sir? Was it a difficult but necessary decision? Or, could Indira Gandhi have done it some other way?
Thank you, Shiv, for getting me in here. Staying clear of politics, as Abhijit rightly said. it's very clear that it was a situation that had to be handled decisively. The point is, let's go back a little beyond before 1962 also. I mean, we got independence in 47 with myriad problems on our head. Basically, economics, lack of money, the refugee crisis in the initial stages, etc., etc. But let's take ourselves back to the government of the 50s and the beginning of 60s. It was a huge ask. So let's not restrict just to 62. And thereafter 65 war.
Yes.
And in 65, the decade of the 60s, remember, we were living from, it was from ship to mouth. The PL 480, Shastriji actually asked for gold to finance arms purchases in 65 war and to get out of the economic situation. He asked that from the citizen. So in that condition, here was a declaration of independence and the hoisting of the flag, as you brought out in the history of that. A decisive action had to be taken. So on the 5th of March, actually first initially, 5 para, and I think 6, they were flown by Me Force from Kumbhigram towards Aizawl. The helicopters had to come back because they were shot up badly. They came back. And next day, thereafter, when they went in, and the Dakotas also went in to drop supplies and arms to the besieged garrison, they were escorted with Tufanis. And the Tufanis strapped the area around where the MNF posts were, and so did the hunters. So it was 29 squadron from Tesco and 37 squadron too, with the hunters that flew in. If the Prime Minister, or let's take it, the government of the day, had not taken that decision, then we would have been in big problems. And that lasted just 2 days incident. As far as we know, it was just 2 days, the 5th and 6th, and 7th onwards thereafter, since they dispersed into the hills, the army caught up, removed the insurgents from the posts, and the normal process of anti-insurgency started. So there was no choice, and it was good. That point, the decision was taken.
So it was a correct decision being taken. Abhijit, I know, I don't want to get embroiled in all the politics of it, but, since it did come up as part of the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, there are those who will say that Indira Gandhi's decision and her action, was a symptom of the politics over the Northeast. And, many have also used the example of 1984, the Bhindranwale episode with Indira Gandhi as being a reference point, saying that, like later in 1984, when Indira Gandhi allowed the situation to get so bad that she finally had to take decisive action in the form of Operation Blue Star. Similarly, with the disclaimer that her government is only a few weeks old, etc., it was basically the same thing again, letting a situation get so bad that hard action is imposed on you.
I would disagree with that, Shiv, and I'll tell you why. So remember, in 1984, Bhindranwale was a creation of Indira Gandhi and Gyani Zail Singh. Both of them actively pushed Bhindranwale because they wanted to get votes away from the Akalis. That was a careful, calculated maneuver that had taken several years. What happened in Mizoram was a case of neglect, and it was spawned by something called the Mautam, which is the flowering, 50-year flowering of the bamboo. Now, bamboo flowers every 50 years out there as a self-defense mechanism. And what that leads to is, because there's too much bamboo seed, there's a sprouting of a huge number of rats. Now, what happens is, once the rats have finished eating the bamboo, they start eating all the grain and crop. This wasn't the first time. 58, 59 was when it happened. This wasn't the first time it had happened. You had a massive famine because of it in 1862. You had a massive famine because of it in 1911. So every 50 years, around about 50 years, it happens. And 65 was when the next Mautam, 58 was when the next Mautam happened. Now, when this Mautam happened, people died. Now, remember, like the Air Marshal said, we were desperate. We were living at that time. In fact, this was one of the episodes that led to the Green Revolution, the urgency of the Green Revolution, which started in 1968 with the IR-8, with the improvised dwarf rice and things like that, that Norman Borlaug introduced. But this was one of the crucial factors. So what happened was, you were already living hand to mouth or ship to mouth, as the Air Marshal said. And on top of that, you had a rat plague. Now, our famine was because of inadequate production. What was happening here was that you had a rat infestation exacerbating the situation. In spite of that, to the government's credit, only 100 people, approximately 100 people died. Now, 100 people in terms of a famine isn't a particularly bad management of resources. Was it an optimal management of resources? No, but people tend to forget. In those days, we were a very, very poor country. We did not have money to spend on preemptive famine fighting and things like that. And also, we were living in a situation where we had fought 2 wars, 62 and 65, like the Air Marshal said, and the expenditure on the treasury had been massive.
Yes.
So, this wasn't so much a case of neglect at all. I would say it was generally, in terms of Indian neglect, this was one of the less neglected situations.
Very, very interesting perspective there. And, I expect nothing less from the both of you. Air Vice Marshal Bahadur, very, very final comment from you, running short of time. The Air Force is a supremely professional force, but through the benefit of time, hindsight, and, looking at these, these difficult times in the rearview mirror, are historians within the Air Force, veterans like you, conflicted about the use of air power against our own citizens? Because that's what this was finally, technically. These were rebels. These were people who were killing other Indians. But is there a conflict in anyone's mind, sir?
No, because we are very sure of the government of the day, no matter which political party, that the political party takes all points into consideration before giving or passing an order to the armed forces. So, and any government, whichever party is in power, knows that it should use minimum, if not zero force against its own citizens.
Absolutely.
So if an order comes, the government has thought through this situation. Please remember, we have not used it in JNK, we have not used it in Naxal area, we have not used it in Assam, we have not used it in the other part of the Northeast, where insurgency to a certain extent is still on. And hence, what I feel is that there is no dichotomy or any doubt in any soldier, sailor or airman, that an order that comes is very legitimate and the government has thought through everything.
I think that that kind of clarity is a good note to end this on. I am definitely wiser, and I hope my viewers as well are. Air Vice Marshal Bahadur and Abhijit, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time here on India Today, on an issue that most people don't know very much about. I must confess I didn't either before I did this show, but hopefully we're all walking away with a greater perspective on something. Like many of those visuals we just showed you from 1966, these are all shades of grey. Thanks so much for watching. Another nugget from the Prime Minister's speech on the no-confidence motion that may have gotten lost in the noise was about the Congress's mishandling of the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. He highlighted how then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi attacked the holy Akal Takht during Operation Blue Star. What was the significance, and why am I telling you about it now? Take a look at this report.
An operation that struck the holiest of Sikh shrines almost 40 years ago. Operation Blue Star aimed at clearing militants holed up inside the Akal Takht, the highest seat of Sikh temporal authority in the complex of the Shri Darbar Sahib, the Golden Temple, deeply wounded the Sikh soul. A wave of protests ripped through the entire Sikh community. Many returned government honours and positions of influence. Fast forward to 2023.
कौन था उस समय? इंदिरा गांधी। अकाल तख्त पर हमला हुआ है तो अभी भी हमारी स्मृति में है। उनको मिजोरम में उसके पहले ही आदत लग गई थी और इसलिए अकाल तख्त पर हमला करने तक वो पहुंचे थे, मेरे ही देश में, और यहां हमें उपदेश दे रहे हैं।
India's Prime Minister recounts the army attack on the Akal Takht in his reply to the no trust motion on Thursday.
Prime Minister issued this critique on the floor of Parliament. It was a rare critique of its kind of Operation Blue Star in several ways. The texture of PM Modi's mention of the attack on the Akal Takht was filled with heavy criticism of the then Congress government for using the might of the armed forces on the most sacred site of a community. Prior to PM Modi, heads of government have usually avoided critiquing Operation Blue Star as openly as he did in the Lok Sabha.
For the record, the BJP has been a vocal critic of Operation Blue Star. Most of that criticism, however, has been voiced outside Parliament.
The worst form of desecration, if ever carried out, of the Golden Temple is to be talked about. It was by late Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi. Tanks rolled on to the Golden Temple. The walls of the Golden Temple literally came crumbling down. Can we ever think of any worse form of sacrilege or desecration?
In 2005, then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, himself a Sikh, issued an apology for the massacre of Sikhs that followed the assassination of Indira Gandhi in October 1984. But he referred to Operation Blue Star as a tragic event in the context of Indira Gandhi's determination not to change her Sikh bodyguards.
4,000 people were killed in this great national tragedy that took place in 1984. I have no hesitation in saying that what happened, the death of a great Prime Minister who had served our country with the greatest distinction in peace and war, her death at the hands of her own bodyguards was a great national tragedy. And what happened subsequently was equally shameful.
But Prime Minister Modi's direct comments on Operation Blue Star in Parliament have been received positively by the BJP's former allies.
प्रधानमंत्री साहब का ये बयान बहुत अहम है और हम ये चाहते हैं कि ये जो ताका नीरा तारा का ऑपरेशन हुआ है इसको पार्लियामेंट में पास किया जाए और उसके ऊपर खेद प्रकट किया जाए ताकि ये बात सही हो सके.
The complex legacy of Operation Blue Star continues to haunt the Sikh community.
The wounds of the past remain, but perhaps an open dialogue can pave the way for a deeper understanding and healing of that dark phase. Harmeet Shah Singh for India Today.
That's it on India First. Thanks so much for watching. The news continues right here on India Today.
From the biggest conflict zones
We are at the Hostel Air Base and this is
to the biggest international moments, a reporter with India's flag on his sleeve and an unrelenting eye on terror, defense and national security, on the road, up the heights, in the trenches. He brings you stories that must unite us, because when it's national interest, it's India First. Monday to Friday 10 p.m. only on India Today TV.
Viluppuram judge, where this case was happening, he has written to speeden up this case and for completion, wherein this case is now transferred from Viluppuram to Vellore on administrative order. Any matter, wherever the case is being contested, it is on merits, and the judgment is going to happen on merits. And what is the reason to shift the case from Viluppuram to Vellore for no reason at all? So there are many such incidences which has given a shoddy image on the entire process of judicial process. I think now the damage control exercise has started, and we hope the justice is delivered soon.
This is a welcome move by the Honorable High Court, and people are feeling very happy that justice still prevails. So I think next to Senthil Balaji, in line, Mr. Ponmudi should be dismissed. But we don't expect that to happen because Mr. Stalin is very adamant to carry on with Senthil Balaji and Mr. Ponmudi.
राजद्रोह पर कि अंग्रेजों ने अपने शासन को बचाने के लिए एक कानून बना था. मैं इस सदन को कहना चाहता हूं, एक ऐतिहासिक निर्णय इस सरकार ने किया है. राजद्रोह को कंप्लीटली हम रिपील कर रहे हैं। यहां लोकतंत्र है, सबको बोलने का अधिकार है। राजद्रोह को हम कंप्लीटली रिपील कर रहे हैं मान्यवर। गैंग रेप के सभी मामलों में 20 साल की सजा या आजीवन कारावास का प्रावधान किया है, जो आज नहीं है। 18 वर्ष से कम आयु की बच्चियों के मामले में मृत्यु दंड का भी प्रावधान। मॉब लिंचिंग का बड़ा शोर मचा है, हमने उसको केयरफुली करा है। मॉब लिंचिंग के लिए भी 7 साल आजीवन कारावास और मृत्युदंड तीनों का प्रोविजन कर हम प्रावधान मान्यवर लाए।
नियम के 352 में स्पष्ट है कि जो सदन का नेता है, सर्वोच्च नेता, सदन का सर्वोच्च नेता प्रधानमंत्री है, उसके बारे में तुम कभी भी कोई टिप्पणी करोगे, अभद्र भाषा का उपयोग करोगे, जानबूझकर करोगे, अपनी टीआरपी बढ़ाने के लिए कि मेरी पार्टी मुझे नेता प्रतिपक्ष बनाए रखे, तो निश्चित रूप से वो संवैधानिक सिस्टम का, वो देश की मर्यादाओं को तार तार करने वाला होता है। बार बार उनको कहा गया माफी मांगे, सॉरी फील करें, बाकी भी मांगे, वो माफी भी नहीं मांगे। कोई भी मंत्री बोलता है तुरंत बीच में खड़े हो जाते हैं, जब उनको पूरा टाइम दिया जाता है। उनकी पार्टी ने उनको टाइम नहीं दिया बोलने का, कहीं कलकत्ता से फोन आ गया होगा, किसको नहीं बुलवाना है, इसलिए कांग्रेस दबाव में नहीं दिया। फिर भी सोचा नेता प्रतिपक्ष है, उनको टाइम दिया जाना चाहिए। आधे घंटे का टाइम गृह मंत्री जी के कहने पर, रिक्वेस्ट करने पर, पार्लियामेंट अफेयर मिनिस्टर के रिक्वेस्ट करने पर संसदीय हमारे लोकसभा अध्यक्ष ने समय दिया, और उसके बाद फिर इस प्रकार की टिप्पणियां करना अभद्र, कि किसी भी ऐसे भगोड़े, किसी भी ऐसे भ्रष्टाचारी का नाम प्रधानमंत्री के साथ जोड़कर ये कहना कि आप में उनकी फोटो दिखाई देती है, तो वो देश के कहीं ना कहीं दुनिया भर में देश को शर्मिंदा करने वाला सब्जेक्ट होता है। तो ऐसे लोगों को निकाला ही जाना चाहिए।
प्रधानमंत्री अभी तक ऐसी क्या जिद पर अड़े हैं, ऐसी क्या जिद पर अड़े हैं कि मणिपुर अब तक नहीं गए। मेरा दूसरा प्रश्न कि मणिपुर के मुख्यमंत्री को क्यों नहीं बर्खास्त किया, जिस मुख्यमंत्री के 3 महीने के कार्यकाल में लगभग 6 लाख गोलियां, लगभग 6,000 हथियार पुलिस थानों से लूटकर निहत्थे लोगों पर आज गोलियां बरसाई जा रही हैं। ऐसे व्यर्थ मुख्यमंत्री को प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने क्यों बर्खास्त नहीं किया।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Here are the day's top stories. Investors take heed of what Prime Minister Narendra Modi had to say on stocks of government-run companies. 8 of 11 CPSE shares ended in green, even as markets see an all-around fall. Government to tweak PLI scheme for sectors which have underperformed, says course correction needed in some areas, set to release 13,000 crore rupees as incentives this year. Online gaming stocks like Nazara, Delta and OnMobile end in the red as Parliament okays the bill to impose 28% GST on the sector, new tax to be imposed from the 1st of October. One of the Kamath brothers who are behind the success of Zerodha reveals his plans to enter the gaming arena. Later in the show, listen in to what Nikhil Kamath had to say to BTTV. US President Joe Biden calls China economy a ticking time bomb as China faces its first deflation in 3 years, says China could trigger a global economic meltdown. BTTV tells you what it means for India. Equity investors seem to have taken Prime Minister Narendra Modi's message to heart. The Prime Minister, in his reply to the no-confidence motion debate in Lok Sabha yesterday, had taunted opposition claims about an alleged decline in government-owned enterprises, saying investors would reap a rich harvest if they invested in PSU shares. Listen in to what the Prime Minister had to say.
शेयर मार्केट में रुचि रखने वाले को भी ये गुरु मंत्र है कि जो सरकारी कंपनियों को ये लोग गाली देना, आप उसमें दांव लगा दीजिए साहब, अच्छा ही होने वाला है.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi mentioned two stocks as well. Hindustan Aeronautics, he said, was once written off by Rahul Gandhi, only to have risen 234% in the past 5 years. The stock rose more than 2% today, but closed around 0.5% in the red. LIC was the other company mentioned by the Prime Minister. It rose more than 3% in trade. Business Today TV stocks editor Shailendra Bhatnagar spoke to a panel of experts on this issue this morning. Here's an excerpt.
Mayuresh, first to you. What are your two stock picks in the PSU sector which might outperform over the medium term? And I'll also request Sudeep to get ready with his picks technically in the PSU space. Mayuresh, first to you.
So one, we spoke about Bank of Maharashtra within the PSU banking space. Our take is that there is much more steam to go, so I'll not repeat on that. And the second one would be within the power space itself, Shell, sir. I think NTPC, I think any pullback should be taken as a buying opportunity. 2-3 things are happening here which is very, very interesting. I think the entire transition from thermal to renewables over the next few years, 2030 target of almost 130 gigawatts, half of which will be covered by renewables. Thermal will still continue its good run over the next few years.
Coming back to you, Mr. Shah, and your top bets from the PSU pack.
It would be NHPC, because what we've seen with NHPC, the stock has in the last few months, it was consolidating. Even since October 2022, it was consolidating between say 38 and 45. But post that, when it has given a breakout, it has not yet moved too far. So I feel that from the current, if we speak from the current scenario, also there is a decent upside that is available in the stock. And the second pick would be BEL, Bharat Electronics Limited. Now we all know that how much of a push that the government is giving on the defense stocks and procuring the defense, and the defense industry is now on an up move.
Equity markets extended their fall for a second session today, dragged by pharma, healthcare, banking, financial and consumer goods stocks. Weak global cues also weighed on sentiments. Sensex was down 366 points, Nifty was down 115 points today. And top gainers today, HCL Tech, Power Grid, Titan, Tata Steel, Ultratech Cement, they held out in trade. On the downside, we had the likes of IndusInd Bank, SBI Life, UPL, Tata Consumers and Asian Paints. 17 months after retaking Air India from the government, the Tata Group has draped the Maharaja in new clothes. As part of its revamp of the legacy airline, the conglomerate has unveiled a new logo, new colours and a completely new livery for Air India. As part of its coverage of the story, Business Today TV also spoke to the man behind the revamp.
I get at least a couple of mails a day, either criticizing or complimenting. But even in those criticisms that I receive, each and every one of them, short mail or long mail, there is a little amount of concern and heart. Can you not fix it? Can you not get it done faster? How can we keep going like this?
The Tata Group has responded with a massive revamp and rebranding exercise for the 90-year-old airline. The old Air India logo with the red swan and orange spokes inspired by Ashok Chakra has been replaced with a new livery of golden, red and purple colours. The new logo, reflecting the gold window frame, has been named the Vista.
Well, as you see behind me, entering is the new identity of the modern Air India, as the Tata Group has announced. In fact, what we are awaiting from this Air India 2.0 is their new logo, Vista, which represents the bold India. In fact, they've retained the iconic Indian household with a golden touch, with a palette of colors. There's red, there's aubergine, and a gold touch, which represents the strength and depth of being an Indian. Joshi, hi. Looks like Tata's definitely trusted the right.
Business Today TV caught up with Prasun Joshi, the CEO of McCann, which was given Air India's advertising and marketing mandate in June.
The fact that we want to learn from everything from the legacy, but at the same time, we want to look forward. And that's the reason the window it felt like something which gives possibilities, which is hope, possibilities. You look out for more, and I think that's what has been the thinking behind. And it doesn't mean that we don't value legacy.
It is not just cosmetic changes that Air India is undergoing. The Tata Group is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on rebuilding the airline ground up. Deals have been cemented with airports around the world for access to first and business class lounges. The new Air India website and app went live about a week ago. What's planned soon is 24/7 helpline for passengers. The frequent flyer program is also being rejigged to offer passengers more benefits. The airline is open an aviation academy to reskill its staff. A mega order of 500 aircraft has already been placed, of which the first Airbus A350S will join the fleet by December.
The way it shows on the side of the plane.
The existing aircraft are being refitted at an expense of $400 million, an exercise which will take around 2.5 years. The new and refitted aircraft will be available with 1,700 hours of in-flight entertainment. Suspense, however, remains about the role of Vistara, with top airline sources saying that Vistara will continue as an independent entity supporting Air India. Discussions are reportedly underway to keep Vistara afloat as a sub-brand. Meanwhile, the airline has scotched speculation that the iconic Air India Maharaja, born in 1946 as the airline mascot, was being retired.
The rumours of his demise have been greatly exaggerated. The Maharaja will live on. Close to home, he'll remain our beloved, slightly portly ambassador of hospitality. Farther afield, he will signify a class and an elegance while drawing a unique thread from Air India's past into its future. And his values of service, warmth and hospitality will infuse the DNA of every Air Indian as we build this airline into a world-class global airline with an Indian heart, serving Indians and friends of India consistently to the very highest of standards.
With Karishma Sudani, Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
US President Joe Biden has called China a ticking time bomb because of its economic challenges, adding that the troubles in China could lead to problems globally. The statement comes just a day after China announced a negative inflation in July, adding to indicators of a slowing economy. Business Today TV Managing Editor Siddharth Zarabi spoke to experts about the possible impact here in India. Listen in.
In the context of the latest move by President Joe Biden, the US has prohibited investment in sensitive technology. This focuses on semiconductor chips, on quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and also put on a approval list other tech funding. And this has meant that US private equity and venture fund investments into China are at an 8-year low. Now, in the broader scheme of things, specifically, we've also been trying our own efforts to boost manufacturing. We've seen some results. Do you actually see the fresh curbs resulting in a shift towards India, a further shift and significant investments in some of these sectors, or will this US money and interest go elsewhere in the world?
It is likely that India would be a big gainer in this process of the decoupling or de-risking that has been mentioned between United States and China. You did mention about the semiconductor ban, the chips ban to China in October last year, $130 billion ban on Huawei and ZTE Chongqing. Secondly, the second round of curbs that have been announced by the Biden administration. This is despite the visits of Blinken, Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, and Kissinger in quick succession in the last 2 months. Despite that, there has been no Chinese, plan B on this, and they continue with tariffs on American products as a part of the Trump administration policies in 2017 and 18. So the retaliatory tariff measures has vitiated the atmosphere between US and China. And it appears that there is no way back on that front.
We take a break. When we return, Zerodha's Kamath brothers are eyeing an investment in the gaming sector.
After government's order of the opening of a school, right now I am here at the one of the girls' school. Right now you can see the school are open, gates are open, but there is no any student you can see here, but teachers are available here. And now I'm joining with the principal, Mrs. Nimal Jain, to talk about the reason behind there is no any girl inside the school. What is the reason behind it?
I think the information has not been reached to the parents or the students. When they will be informed about the opening of the school, I hope they will come from Monday.
It means the information were in the newspaper, but do you find any kind of inquiry about the parents, about the safety concern of the children?
No, honestly, I didn't find any question from the parent side.
So you can see that how what is the reason behind it, that no any girl inside the school despite the opening or the government's order. And the principal ma'am, would you like to express us that would you expect the good strength of students in coming week?
We are hoping that students will come because the exams are also going to start in next week. So I hope they will come.
So it's a very crucial kind of situation that exams are in coming week, and next day is a second Saturday, then a Sunday. But due to internet shutdown, they are thinking that the students will come in next week. With camera person Manish Jha in Nu, it's Ram Kinkar Singh for India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Welcome back. The centre is tweaking some of the production-linked incentive schemes which have underperformed. Though the government has not identified these sectors, it has said that PLI schemes for sectors including medical devices, pharma, food processing, telecom, drones and white goods are doing well. The centre has also decided to increase the PLI dispersal this year to 13,000 crore rupees. For more on this, let's go across to Business Today economy editor Surbhi, who's got all the details. Surbhi, take us through what's on the agenda.
The centre today indicated that it's looking at restructuring some of the PLI schemes or production-linked incentive schemes in sectors where there has been undersubscription or lesser interest. If you recall, the scheme was introduced way back in 2020 for 14 sectors. DPIIT Secretary Rajesh Kumar Singh today informed that the government is looking to restructure some of the sectors where the PLI scheme has not worked, although he did not elaborate on this. But based on what is there in public knowledge, it seems that sectors such as textiles and ACC batteries, etc., have not done well. In fact, for the 20 gigawatt our ACC batteries, the government has started a second round of bidding because there was not enough.
Secretariat will work together. We'll get a amendment to the CGST taken up at the earliest, hopefully even in this session. And when the question of when to implement it came, 1st October is when it is expected, by which time the states also will pass their amendments to their state laws.
What followed this announcement earlier this month was doomsday predictions, with online gaming associations saying the additional tax burden will destroy the $3.3 billion industry. In fact, one of the big players, Mobile Premier League, used the yet-to-be-imposed tax as a stick to fire 50% of its employees. But the industry has one cheerleader no one counted on. Nikhil Kamath, one half of the Kamath brothers, who revolutionized equity investing in India with their Zerodha platform. In an exclusive conversation with Business Today TV, the entrepreneur announced his plans for a big bang entry into the gaming industry.
Haven't made any large investments yet, but seeking opportunities, meeting prospective companies to partner, collaborate, invest in right now.
36-year-old entrepreneur also had some very good reasons why he's eyeing the gaming business.
Well, largely the rate of growth is very appealing. Gaming sector is growing significantly faster than other forms of content. But outside of that, the younger generation, I feel like people who are in their 20s now or teenagers, they seem a lot less enamored by old school content like I might have been in my generation. Interactive engagement with the feedback loop seems to be the way forward. So for many reasons, I'm bullish on gaming and esports.
He, however, made it clear that he was not looking at the gambling business.
To make the distinction that I'm not talking about gambling, but only gaming. I'm not talking about fantasy leagues and stuff like that.
Kamath also tweeted his plans for the gaming industry, calling it the next big thing for India. He included some hard figures as well. According to Kamath, the global gaming industry is double the size of the movie and the music industries combined. He added that in 2021 and 22, the share of games downloaded by Indians went up to 17% of the global downloads, with an average Indian gamer paying around 1700 rupees for online games. Further supporting his argument, Kamath said the Indian gaming industry directly employs around 150,000 people, and of these 30% are developers and programmers. Citing data from a third source, Kamath claimed the Indian gaming market is expected to grow at 27% per annum to reach $8.6 billion by financial year 2027, and that the prize pool of the esports industry is poised to outgrow the prize pool of IPL in the next 2 years. He did, however, agree that the 28% GST on the gaming industry will have some impact.
There seems to be some kind of clarification even there on GST, where it will apply on the total amount put in, but not on every transaction. To a certain extent, I feel this is still too high, and it would impact their revenues and may end up driving more business in the way of offline players. So it's probably not the best thing for the ecosystem, but my focus and my interest is more towards gaming. Like, I'm talking about things like Fortnite or Counter-Strike or FIFA or all the new kind of gaming that kids today on Discord are talking about.
Seen here attending a dinner at the White House during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the US in June, the entry of Nikhil and Nitin Kamath could disrupt the gaming industry like never before. Zerodha has already taken on and beaten industry giants at their own game, emerging as the biggest brokerage in the country in just 13 years of inception. With Bhavya Kaushal, Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
If you're planning a holiday during the extended Independence Day weekend, it could be a tad difficult for you. Not only have airlines done the usual and raised airfares to improbable levels, hotels have also taken advantage of the huge travel rush and hiked tariffs. The skyrocketing prices will be a nightmare for you if you haven't yet planned and booked your trip.
The white sands of Goa, the backwaters of the God's own country, the serene hill stations and river rafting in Uttarakhand, or even a temple run in Madhya Pradesh or Tamil Nadu. If you are planning to head to any of these locations and haven't booked your holiday yet, you are in trouble because the festive season may not have begun for you, but it has already started for airline and hoteliers. The 4-day extended Independence Day weekend is a perfect launch pad for this tourism festive season. According to some reports, travel demand for these 4 days is more than 2.5 times more than it was last year. And this rise in demand is accompanied with a corresponding rise in airfares in hotel tariffs. Rooms are priced much higher than they were last year, some estimates say as much as 20% higher. Last-minute holiday planners are shelling out at least 20,000 rupees to spend a single night at 5-star resorts. The popular Taj Lake Palace in Udaipur is charging 1.8 lakh rupees for 3 nights. The Taj-owned Rambagh in Jaipur is charging 5.9 lakh rupees for 4 nights. The Fairmount Hotel in Udaipur is charging 20,000 per night for rooms with rack rates of 5 to 15,000 rupees on regular days. The Acker Group raffles is already sold out. It's not only the hotel rooms which are costing more, even airfares are surging. For departure on Saturday and return on Tuesday, the return airfare from Delhi to Goa and Delhi to Jaipur is around 22,000 rupees. Delhi to Srinagar and Delhi to Kolkata will set you back by 12,500 rupees. Flights from Bengaluru to Delhi and back are up as much as 27,000 rupees. Chennai to Delhi is also much higher than usual, while Delhi to Udaipur return airfares have surged up to 30,000 rupees. Beyond top Indian cities, destinations that have registered the highest number of hotel bookings include Panjim, Jaipur. According to ClearTrip, luxury hotels are trending 25% above their usual rate for the weekend, and at an aggregate level, 5-star hotels are reporting 85 to 89% occupancy. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
That's it for the show tonight. Thanks so much for watching.
I watched the Prime Minister of India yesterday speaking for 2 hours, laughing, joking, lagawing naras in the parliament. The Prime Minister would say one line and the entire BJP would shout another nara. The Prime Minister seems to have forgotten that the state of Manipur is on fire and has been on fire for 4 months. Women and children are dying over there. People are being murdered. Women are being molested, are being raped. And the Prime Minister of India is sitting in the middle of the parliament shamelessly laughing. This is not about Rahul Gandhi. This is not about the Congress party. This is not about the opposition. This is about India. It's about our country. A state has been decimated. It has been destroyed. It does not exist anymore. And it has happened because of the politics of the BJP. Divide and rule and burn. That is why in my speech I said, Bharat Mata has been murdered in Manipur.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Everything happens for a reason. I don't feel anymore. To be free. Feel that. There should be limitations with expressions that might harm others. As human beings, the bare minimum that we could do is be able to express freely.
So sorry. नमस्ते टमाटर प्रेमियों 104.8 इश्क एफएम पर आपको चखाना चाहता हूँ आजकल का टमाटरी गीत ये
Shake your body, girl.
हो ग्रेवी बिरयानी हो चटनी पाव भाजी सदमे में अम्मी और अब्बा 1 किलो टमाटर 200 का था बिल बजट हिला मेरा रब्बा टमाटर कैसे लोगे 200 के किलो हो गए टमाटर टमाटर कैसे लोगे 200 के किलो हो गए टमाटर किलो में ना निकले एक भी ढंग का मम्मी का दिमाग था सन का टमाटर जो ना मैं छांट के लाया मम्मी लगा देगी लंका टमाटर वाला एक नहीं आ रहा ऑनलाइन भी चेक कर चुका मैं मोहल्ले की सारी रेडी पूछ पूछ के मर चुका मैं नहीं जरूरत बर्गर में टमाटर की सलाद बन रही खीरा प्याज और गाजर की एक टमाटर से पूरा दिन तुम चलाओ वन हो गई सिस्टर और अम्मा टमाटर कैसे लोगे 200 के किलो हो गए टमाटर
A good speaker is a good listener. The maximum production budget which I have spent on a video of mine on Instagram is $10.
Oh, that's an attack.
You wanted something controversial.
हार्दिक क्या आप करके आया कॉफी पीने जा रहा हूँ
I act, I make people laugh. My way of just having fun. Chalo, let's start all over. Come.
watching India Today.
Mega escalation in Rahul versus Modi war. After a fiery face-off in Parliament,
उस आवाज की हत्या आपने मणिपुर में की.
war of words hits top gear. Rahul Gandhi takes aim at Prime Minister Modi again.
अगर इस देश में हिंसा हो रही है, दर्द हो रहा है, हिंदुस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री को 2 घंटे मजाक नहीं उड़ाना चाहिए.
Rahul slams PM over the Manipur crisis. It's now Rahul versus Modi, round 2.
No matter what the Congress party says, no matter what Team India says, I'm going to go ahead and declare that the fight for 2024 is going to be Modi versus Rahul 3.0. Over the next half hour, I'm going to tell you why I think so. I think it has become beyond doubt that the narrative, the political sweepstakes and the face-off is being built up to be a Modi versus Rahul affair once again. There's going to be a great deal of deja vu for many of our viewers. The Congress is going to rubbish it and say, no, this is about issues, not about personality. The BJP is going to say, we don't want to give Rahul Gandhi any importance. But the truth of the matter is, Rahul Gandhi is front and center. He's been repackaged for the nth time to be proposed as the next Prime Minister of India. And this entire war is building up to be once again, familiarly, a Modi versus Rahul affair. Mark my words, it happened yesterday, it happened today, it's going to happen repeatedly over the next 10 months in the lead up to the 24 election. It's going to be Modi versus Rahul 3.0. It's not going to go any other way. It's Rahul versus Modi 3.0, no matter which way you look at it, viewer. The fact is, there are only 10 months to go for the big election in 2024. But Rahul versus Modi as a setup continues to rage one day after that fiery face-off in Parliament. The Congress MP branded today the Prime Minister a petty politician who is shameless and accused him of mocking India through his 2-hour speech in Parliament. A combative Rahul Gandhi in a brief press conference also alleged that the Prime Minister was fueling the Manipur fire instead of trying to douse it. Remember yesterday, during his reply to the no-confidence motion, the Prime Minister accused the Congress and the opposition of politicizing the Manipur issue and running away from the debate. Rahul Gandhi, in response, repeated his Bharat Mata murdered charge and said that Manipur has been destroyed. But he underscored his entire press conference. The theme of today's attack by Rahul Gandhi on the Prime Minister was that the Prime Minister is laughing, Prime Minister is giggling, he is not serious about Manipur. When we're talking about a serious issue, the Prime Minister was shamelessly laughing and giggling. That is what Rahul's attack has become today.
The Indian Army, it will take the Indian Army 2 days to put an end to the nonsense that is going on in Manipur. The Prime Minister refuses to stop the fire. He wants Manipur to burn. He allows Manipur to burn. Because if he did want it to stop, there are tools in the hands of the Indian government that can stop it immediately. I know. I have full faith in our army. I know. And every Indian citizen knows that if the Indian army is told, please put an end to this, it will stop immediately. There are reasons for the PM not being able to go to Manipur. I'm aware of those reasons. I don't want to say them publicly. But there are clear reasons as to why the Prime Minister is not going there. The only conclusion I can draw, because the Prime Minister has tools in his hand that can stamp out the fire in Manipur certainly within 3 or 4 days. But for some reason, he's refusing to use those tools. Right? The Prime Minister could at least go to Manipur. Talk to the communities and say, I'm your Prime Minister. Let's start talking. It will be taken seriously. So I don't see any intention. I watched the Prime Minister of India yesterday speaking for 2 hours, laughing, joking, लगाएं naras in the parliament. The Prime Minister would say one line and the entire BJP would shout another nara. You know, the Prime Minister seems to have forgotten that the state of Manipur is on fire and has been on fire for 4 months. Women and children are dying over there. People are being murdered. Women are being molested, are being raped. And the Prime Minister of India is sitting in the middle of the parliament shamelessly laughing. This is not about Rahul Gandhi. This is not about the Congress party. This is not about the opposition. This is about India. It's about our country. A state has been decimated. It has been destroyed. It does not exist anymore. And it has happened because of the politics of the BJP. Divide and rule and burn. That is why in my speech I said, Bharat Mata has been murdered in Manipur.
राहुल, आपने बोला कि प्रधानमंत्री ने बोला सदन में कि गृह मंत्री अमित शाह ने विस्तार से जवाब दे दिया। अमित शाह साहब ये कहते हैं कि मणिपुर के सीएम को हटाने की जरूरत इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि उन्होंने हमारी पूरी बात सुनी और वो कभी भी कोई हमने डीजीपी चेंज किया, डीजीपी चेंज कर दिया, उन्होंने जो भी प्रशासनिक व्यवस्था हम चेंज करना चाहते थे, इसलिए मणिपुर सीएम को हटाने की कोई जरूरत नहीं।
जब मैं मणिपुर गया, मणिपुर सीएम ने जो मणिपुर में हजारों वेपन्स जो लूटे गए, वो मणिपुर सीएम के नीचे ही हुआ। तो क्या अमित शाह चाहते थे कि ये हजारों वेपन्स लूटे जाएं? हाँ संजय।
राहुल जी,
जो हिंसा चल रही है, क्या अमित शाह चाहते हैं कि हिंसा चलती जाए? चीफ मिनिस्टर उसको रोक नहीं पा रहा है। अमित शाह जी कह रहे हैं कि भैया वो हमारी बात मान रहा है, तो क्या आप चाहते हैं कि मणिपुर चलता जाए? It's very interesting. For the first time, the words Bharat Mata have been expunged from the parliament. It's an insult to those words. Whatever I said that is wrong, I have said Bharat Mata, which is an idea, which is the idea of India, where everybody lives peacefully, harmoniously, with affection, has been killed in Manipur. It's a fact. So, the word itself now cannot be spoken by the people of India. We cannot say Bharat Mata in parliament.
Let me quickly first go to India Today's Mausami Singh because she was at that press conference. She was asking a question. Mausami, you know, I'm still trying to figure out what the purpose of this press conference was. You know, the no trust vote happened. What precisely was the point that Rahul was trying to make? I mean, he and his friends walked out of parliament when the Prime Minister began to talk about Manipur. Actually, before that, what's he talking about now?
So basically, Shiv, Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party are setting the tone for the fight ahead. From the parliament to the streets on the issue of Manipur is what Rahul Gandhi is trying to push forward with this press conference. You know, it was the last day of the monsoon session. The government would actually be summarizing what bills were passed, summarized what bills were passed, how many adjournments were done, and what all happened, taking stock of all the work done. And on the other hand, you have the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi summarizing what happened and what did not happen in Manipur. So clearly, the Congress feels that Manipur is touching the raw nerve of the government, bringing the government on the mat. We couldn't do it as much in the parliament. We'll do it on the streets because that's where the real battle has to be fought.
Bosmi, thank you very much for that. It certainly does sound like that. It sounds almost like an admission that not only has Team India been defeated, as it obviously was going to be in the no trust vote, but has also lost the perception battle and therefore the need to consistently keep up this level of attack. But one is bewildered by some of the things that Rahul Gandhi said today. Let's go straight across to our guest. Dr. Anshul Abhijit is national spokesperson of the Congress Party. Karan Verma is an author. The BJP declined to be part of this discussion. They said they don't want to quote unquote give importance to Rahul Gandhi. But, you know, obviously there's something to talk about there as well, which I will come to. Anshul, first of all, thanks to both of you for your time here on India Today. Anshul, you know, the 3-day discussions as part of the no trust vote happened. You know, many of the speeches were serious. Rahul Gandhi, the opposition, walked out right before the Prime Minister spoke about Manipur. My question, Anshul, to start with is, you know, is this what it has come to? You know, is Rahul Gandhi so bereft of political ideas that his criticism now is that the Prime Minister was giggling in Parliament while Manipur is burning? I mean, there was a full speech. There was one by the Home Minister as well. And Rahul Gandhi's complaint now is that the Prime Minister was laughing.
What kind of speech was it, Shiv? All the jeering, the jibes, the laughter, the mockery. I mean, the picture is there in front of you. You can keep making the headlines that you wish. I know there is an insistence in newsrooms to make attractive headlines and all that. But the picture there is in front of you, and it was brought out by Mr. Rahul Gandhi. That on one hand, you have a state which is after 3.5 months, 3 months still burning. You know, there is deep incompetence on the part of the administration and the chief minister of that particular state who remains there. It's a precious state. It's a fragile state. It's a border state. And it's still burning. There is murderous hostility between two groups. Forget about sharp fault lines being drawn and all that. And on the other hand, you have these cheap jibes and sloganeering by the opposition. You come to the topic. The entire program here was that the Prime Minister breaks his silence on Manipur. You come to the topic after 1.5 hours. Not even that. Cheap sloganeering goes on like a chorus. I don't want to compare it to a kangaroo court. But I mean, absolutely shameful. And Shiv, by the way, this term, India is an alliance, and the term that, you know, summoning all his creativity, he's thought of a particular pun on that word. And I mean, I can't even get to say it. I can't even get to say it. You think this is the high noon of eloquence by the Prime Minister?
The no trust vote, you know, it was an excellent idea. It was necessary. In my view, the Manipur issue being discussed in Parliament was absolutely necessary. I think the opposition did well in bringing attention to it and forcing a no trust vote. My question is the shifting of goalposts. First, you say the Prime Minister hasn't spoken. Then you say he hasn't spoken enough about Manipur in his speech. Then you say he was giggling. Then you say he started on Manipur too late. Then you say there was too much sloganeering. I mean, you know, first you say he's not speaking. Then you want to direct and edit and shape you know, the quality and complexion of the Prime Minister's speech. It was a big speech. It came a day after the Home Minister provided a very detailed clarification, including the failures of the state government as far as Manipur is concerned. And now you've got Rahul Gandhi, who's beginning to sound, you know, like a frustrated politician, talk about the Prime Minister being shameless and giggling in Parliament. That's bankruptcy.
So, in effect, Shiv, what you're trying to tell us is that in a democracy, the opposition has no right to critique the Prime Minister.
Not at all. Not at all what I'm saying.
Shameless. No, but you are actually, the answers are being demanded of the opposition when it is the government which is in power, and the government's mismanagement has led to what is happening in Manipur.
The mismanagement, the opposition walked out when the Prime Minister was there.
Shiv, irony has died 1 million billion deaths at this moment when the opposition is being questioned for questioning the Prime Minister and is absolutely
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I wish, what I'm wishing for, Anshul, and you know I'm right when I say this. What I'm wishing for is that these 3 days were a ruthless, absolutely uninterrupted unrelenting attack on the government as far as Manipur was concerned. It was scattered. There was so much, of course there was sloganeering on the part of the, of the government. The government was on the mat. The opposition simply didn't do enough. You walked out. You let the government off the hook.
We didn't walk out. We were losing our patience by the end of it. It was 1.5 hours of relentless jibes and mocking and laughter and the Gandhi name. And poor A.O. Hume was brought out of the woodwork. I mean, for God's sake. I mean, had enough of this. I mean, it's been so long here. Last time, the Nehru name was brought out. I mean, there is a certain kind of, the Prime Minister must be aware of what his position is. You keep bragging this about being the largest democracy in the world and he being at the head of it. And this is the kind of tackiness, of kitsch and of cheapness that you come down to when there are such serious issues at hand. You get down to it. You answer those questions in all seriousness. If you want, look, Shiv, I agree, there is a time for politics. Even the kind of narratives that we've heard, maybe there is a time for it. You can critique it anytime you want. But this was certainly not the time. The Prime Minister, by his speech, lowered the dignity of Parliament, of the opposition, and of democracy on the whole.
Okay, Karan, where do you stand? What did you think of what Rahul Gandhi said today? I personally thought Rahul Gandhi's speech in Parliament, there are many people who say that it had a great deal of empathy, but it lacked gravitas. I think the speech was powerful. It was to the point as far as Manipur was concerned. It was memorable. It provided, certain phrases that people are thinking about all across the country. But today, in my view, and I want to tell you, I'm being fair because I expect that the pressure needs to be kept up on the government. But by talking about giggling and body language and mockery, I mean, that is part of the political language. When you've got two parties in a hostile atmosphere inside Parliament, taking pot shots at each other, that kind of thing is going to happen. But for that to be the thrust by Rahul Gandhi a day after a very serious no trust vote, what did you think, Karan?
Okay, so Shiv, I hope I'm extended the same courtesy and I can speak my mind out. First of all, when Rahul Gandhi says that the Prime Minister was insensitive, I think it's a classic case of the pot calling the kettle black. Look at how Rahul Gandhi started his speech. He started with some cheap jibes at Adani. That is what he started with. And the entire Congress support system there, they were shouting, Sher Aaya, Sher Aaya. And then they were obsessed with the camera not being on Rahul Gandhi. Does that show empathy? Does that show sensitivity? I doubt it shows that. Secondly, he was thoroughly unprepared. Not a single specific detail where he could have cornered the government. You are right. I wanted the government to be questioned. I wanted specifics to be discussed. But he was thoroughly unprepared. Not a word about how the law and order situation broke apart there. Nothing. And this started right from day one. On day one, the Home Minister, Amit Shah, wrote a letter to Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary and Mallikarjun Kharge. Let's discuss this matter threadbare. They stuck to this technicality. They were fixated with the Prime Minister making a statement. Now, what that shows is they wanted the optics of it rather than solutions. Mr. Amit Shah was ready. The Home Minister, the man who's responsible for the internal security, was ready to discuss this matter threadbare. Why did you run away from this? The entire country was disenchanted because we wanted hard questions to be asked of this government. You let them off the hook and you politicized. Did Supriya Sule talk about Manipur in her address? Did Dimpy Yadav, she was discussing the 500 rupee thali or the electricity cuts in Noida. Did Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary make a nuanced statement? He was trying to internationalize the thing and talking about Nirav Modi and God knows what all. So the truth is the opposition squandered a golden opportunity and the Prime Minister and the Home Minister answered it in great detail. They could have countered the Home Minister then and there. They did not do that. And when the Prime Minister spoke about Manipur, look at his response. Dr. Anshul says, we ran out of patience. Is that the hallmark of a great opposition, to run out of patience? I think it's a case of shooting in the foot and then landing up with that injured foot in your mouth. That is what the opposition has done.
Okay, so the opposition's performance, whether they got what they wanted or not, has been debated yesterday and today as well. Karan makes a point. Anshul, you want to take that on? When I want to keep it as specific as possible because we're on limited time and Mr. Gandhi held a press conference today. I mean, Rahul Gandhi is talking about body language. I mean, this is a politician who has made headlines in the past for his flippant behavior in Parliament. Sure, he's not the Prime Minister. Sure, it's not the same standard he must be subjected to. He's not the executive. I grant that. But here's a guy who, who is very casual in Parliament. He's been accused of using Parliament as an extension of his living room during the infamous hug and wink episode. There was that, in my view, very needless flying kiss episode that happened. He's a man who's very casual. He laughs. He, gestures with his thumbs up. And here he is lecturing someone about giggling and being casual in Parliament. Anshul? I'm only saying it because he brought it up.
I'm telling you, Shiv, are you really sure that the opposition needs to be cross-examined after
I don't.
all this?
I'm just asking because that was the thrust of
similarly,
Rahul Gandhi's press conference, Anshul. That was he mentioned it 4 times, not once, not twice, not thrice. 4 times he said shameless Prime Minister is laughing and giggling.
I'll say it another 50 times. I heard that speech. It's my great misfortune that I have to hear him every single time. It's a punishment for me, Shiv, that I have to hear him. But he's the Prime Minister of this country. I must latch on to every single word he says. And I'm deeply disappointed every time he says it, with every single statement, with every single comment, his every single falsehood. And that is what has happened in that speech yesterday. And I'll tell you the falsehoods. And the irony, you talk about irony, I already spoke about how irony dies every time he utters this word, Quit India movement. About the word he's coined up, all kinds of leveling, all kinds of baseless charges. In all fairness, I've said that there is a time for politics. I have nothing against politics. We're in the game of politics, right? You trade charges, you say all kinds of things, even if they're degraded and cheap. And I understand.
But Anshul, just answer me one question. I hear what you're saying, and what you're saying is entirely reasonable, because there is a place and time for politics, and political barbs. There's, why can't they happen in Parliament? And at one level, Rahul Gandhi even talking about body language is totally legitimate. I mean, in this atmosphere, 10 months before elections, that's fair. My question is, was this really just about politics and Modi rather than about Manipur? You had the Home Minister call for a joint resolution on Manipur. You had the Prime Minister talk about Manipur. The opposition walked out before he could talk about Manipur. It gives the public impression that for the opposition, for Rahul Gandhi, for the Congress party, this was not about Manipur. This was not about having a substantive discussion about Manipur, as was stated to be the case with the no trust vote, but about attacking the Prime Minister personally, which is fine, but at least come out and say it then.
Shiv, you're talking about the opposition not bringing Manipur to the forefront. Do tell me.
Not at all. I praise the opposition for doing
it. Just tell me. I'm answering your question, Shiv.
Yes.
I am just saying that if the Prime Minister brings out Manipur for the very reason that we've called him there, because to break his silence on this very important
topic. He should have done it earlier.
Because No, what sense does it make for it to bring out after 1.5 hours? Is that giving it importance? Have you asked that question? Why don't you ask the Prime Minister that question?
We did. We have. You haven't seen our discussion last night.
Right in the
Anshul, we had a discussion last night where we talked about how the Prime Minister began about Manipur after minute 96. We've discussed it threadbare here. I'm only bringing this up now because of Rahul Gandhi's words. Yeah, finish your point, Anshul.
No, I am just simply saying that the Prime Minister's speech, like all his other speeches, but this makes it particularly so because it was in the floor of this House and it was on such a critical matter at such a critical juncture in our history, was exceedingly distasteful. And I'm using my words very carefully. Actually, I'm not even going ahead and saying what I really think of that speech. I'm marking my words. It was cheap and it was a distasteful speech. And the Prime Minister should have known better as being the head of the biggest democracy in the world.
Karan,
shown maturity at this point.
This is okay. I mean, in politics, this kind of thing goes. But is this a shifting of goalposts? Because, a substantive answer on Manipur did come from the Home Minister. The Prime Minister mentioned it. Now it's about, you started talking about it too late. You should have started from right the beginning. When so many other speeches were about things other than Manipur, now the Prime Minister is being castigated for not starting his speech on Manipur.
I think that's ridiculous. I mean, you can't dictate terms when to speak what. If he would have not spoken about Manipur, that would have been understandable. But he did speak about it. In fact, unfortunately, it's the opposition that walked out when he started speaking about it. Look, the opposition in this entire thing, they had a great opportunity to demand accountability and answers. They have squandered that golden opportunity. And which is why they are not able to stomach this fact that the government, which wanted a discussion on this, they've been let off the hook where they did have an advantage to question it. And even today, you look at this shift, even today they are obsessed with Prime Minister Modi's body language. They are still not asking the hard questions on Manipur. They are obsessed with the Prime Minister making a statement, what kind of body language he has. They are still not coming up with substantial arguments as to why the tension is brewing there. Except for Gaurav Gogoi, who did come up with 2 questions. None of them have come up with anything substantial. Nothing at all. And that
nobody
is what
came with any specific. Nobody from the opposition. Nobody from the opposition, and not Rahul Gandhi in particular, provided any specific points as far as Manipur was concerned. I also want to point out one more paradox, Anshul, with the greatest of respect, is that there were so many people in the opposition, who gave speeches who didn't touch upon Manipur. Gaurav Gogoi started fabulous speech. Let me say it categorically and on record here. Fabulous opening speech that stuck to the Manipur issue. After that, you had a whole bunch of people, including Rahul Gandhi, who spent the first 14 minutes talking about the Bharat Jodo Yatra, etc. Dimple Yadav, Kani Mori, and the others who didn't talk about Manipur. And then you're attacking the Prime Minister, for not talking about Manipur for the first 90 minutes. And this is a day after the Home Minister spent an hour and a half speaking about Manipur and nothing else.
Shiv, when the opposition walked out yesterday, there was not even a whiff of Manipur. We had no idea even Manipur was coming or not. You almost make it sound as if the
That's
Prime
ridiculous,
Minister before him. Did you know Manipur was coming? Did you have any idea when Manipur was coming, if at all? No, how did you have an idea it was coming? Nobody had any idea.
How could anyone have known if it was coming?
And said nothing. When
you wanted the Prime Minister to speak. The Prime Minister was speaking.
No, he wasn't. It was that cheap sloganeering and guarantees about that, I guarantee, the typical manner in which he says it, which I can't recount. I can't even mimic it. I don't want to. It was terrible. And that is when it walked out. And they said that, listen, what's going on here? And by the way, this is the executive. You have the tyranny of the executive in this country.
We asked them the question yesterday, Anshul. I will send you the link of yesterday's discussion on how we've taken the government to task on not enough answers on day 3 as far as Manipur is concerned. We have done it. I will send you the link. But my question is, if you're talking about, if this issue was at the initiative of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi was leading the charge on day 2, then please explain to me. And believe me, I am not here questioning the opposition. I am simply asking this question because Rahul Gandhi has brought it up. I'm saying if Rahul Gandhi spoke for 35 minutes, why for the first 14 minutes was he talking about his transformation, about his knee injury, about the Bharat Jodo Yatra? Why didn't he go from start to finish about Manipur? Yes, he was very emphatic in the end, but why wasn't it from start to finish? That's the same thing that the other side will ask you.
Absolutely not. No. The Prime Minister.
Who cares about his self-transformation?
The jeering. No, Shiv, let me answer that question. There has been no connect between the Prime Minister's jibe and jeering and jest and laughter and the mockery, and then coming down to Manipur at a time when the opposition was not. Then we had no idea it was coming down. The Rahul Gandhi's speech there was about empathy. It was about listening to the people. He was building a ground for coming to Manipur. It had the same tenor. There is absolutely no comparison. You were talking about listening to India and finding solutions. Look, this is the executive. Look, Shiv, this is the executive we are talking about. Who is in power in this country? We're asking questions.
They know the answers.
They know the answers. They have to give the explanations. They have to give point by point what happened and what are their solutions. Why are you putting the opposition in the dock for this? I can't understand.
Definitely not. Definitely not. I'll tell you where some of the anger, I think, reflected from the public is coming from. And this is something that Karan also said. Many in the public were hoping for a much greater level of holding the government accountable as far as Manipur was concerned. And it was a wasted opportunity. At the end of the day, this is a democracy. It's all about politics. Optics, which most people dismiss, I think is extremely important because ultimately it's the optics that make people go, and vote in addition to everything else. So, Karan, to me, the big takeaways from yesterday are there were 2 occasions in which Manipur came up majorly. One was when the Home Minister made his big speech. He called for a resolution, a joint resolution by all members of the House. That didn't happen. That was interpreted as the opposition, seeing that as a trap. Then you had the Prime Minister speak about it, but the opposition walked out. It just seems like it was about optics and not about substance. That's what the vote was about.
I think, Shiv, as far as the Home Minister is concerned, I'll give him credit. He has gone to the minutest details of what really transpired. He discussed how he spent 3 days there. The MOS spent 23 days, how 33,000 battalion, the personnel were deployed there, how the secretary was changed, and the entire detail. So I don't think we can say the Home Minister shied away from a debate or didn't go into the specifics. He did go into the specifics, unlike Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi could have asked such tough questions. I mean, people do a much better job on your news shows asking the government some hard questions. But Rahul Gandhi squandered it away. He totally wasted an opportunity when all eyes were on him, by the way. That was his maiden speech after return. Everybody was waiting to hear from him and he squandered it away, talking about his psychedelic experiences and his knee injury and God knows what all. So let's not paint everyone with the same brush. The Home Minister is the star in the sense that he's come out and said, listen, this is what happened. This is what the history of it has been, how Northeast has been neglected for decades together, how ever since this government took over, for 6 years, there was no curfew, no blockade, nothing till May 3rd. Okay. And yes, what happened on May 3rd was unfortunate. He's owned up that. He said, yes, let's work together towards a peaceful solution. Did they come up with a single solution except for that the CM should resign? What a stupid suggestion. When you are going through turbulent seas, you don't ask the captain to resign. You come up with solutions.
10 months before the elections, one will expect some things like these to happen. But I also want to point out that if the opposition, as part of a no trust vote, has used that platform, and I believe absolutely rightly so, to highlight all of the government's different failures, things that it should be held accountable for, price rise, unemployment, the thali that you're talking about, T.R. Balu talked about certain other things as well. I think that it is a little rich for the opposition to then find fault with the Prime Minister, to use that same platform he's been granted or imposed on him to list his achievements and failures of past governments. That's the way politics works. There can be indignation about it, but remember, 10 months before an election, every opportunity is going to be an election platform. That's how it's going to be. Rahul Gandhi, in my personal view, can never be faulted on lacking empathy, anger, ferociousness as far as these issues is concerned. And hopefully we'll see much more of this on the road to 2024. Anshul and Karan, a pleasure. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with me here.
You are watching India Today.
A viral video for 2 people to be arrested after 77 days. How did the situation spiral out in Haryana so dangerously out of control? Where was the police? Fawzia ji, I promised you ek din aapka beta aayega.
Yeah, the promise is fulfilled. Thankful to you.
Fitness certificate ke bagair bridge reopen karna, ye kiski jawabdehi, sir? A 3-time MLA is beaten up in Imphal almost to death.
Till today, my tears can't stop. I'm eagerly waiting for my husband's recovery.
The beating heart of every story is on News Today. With me, Rajdeep Sardesai, Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. only on India Today TV.
Viluppuram judge, where this case was happening, he has written to speeden up this case and for completion. wherein this case is now transferred from Viluppuram to Vellore on administrative order. Any matter, wherever the case is being contested, it is on merits, and the judgment is going to happen on merits. And what is the reason to shift the case from Viluppuram to Vellore for no reason at all? So there are many such incidences which has given a shoddy image on the entire process of judicial process. I think now the damage control exercise has started, and we hope the justice is delivered soon.
This is a welcome move by the Honorable High Court, and people are feeling very happy that justice still prevails. So I think next to Senthil Balaji, in line, Mr. Pon Modi should be dismissed. But we don't expect that to happen because Mr. Stalin is very adamant to carry on with Senthil Balaji and Mr. Pon Modi.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
हिंदुस्तान जिंदाबाद था, जिंदाबाद है और जिंदाबाद रहेगा.
जब मैं ऐसे ही सोचता हूँ तो लगता वक्त ऐसे ही चला गया. That whole film was shot like a picnic. That place where we had put up the set, that's become Betab Valley. People go there.
We want to know the off-screen Sunny Deol and Dharmender. What kind of a relationship do you guys share with each other?
Being an actor's son, it's always very difficult. The most lonely man is the father.
और उनकी आपने अभी लेटेस्ट फिल्म जो आई वो देखी?
So now Papa is the hero of the film. रब ने बनाई चीज़ें इतना ही है ना. हाँ, only time when I feel very uncomfortable is when I have to dance.
जंग के आसार हैं तारा सिंह जी. बैकअप की तैयारी करना चाहते हैं.
तुझे तारा सिंह को पहचानते नहीं? दुश्मनों ने पूछो तारा सिंह कौन है?
बड़े मौके पर आया है तू. आज मिलेगी मेरे कलेजे को ठंडक.
I have the last action hero standing with me right now, who I thought would have dressed as Tara Singh, but never mind. उनका 2.5 किलो का पंच ही काफी है. He is the man with the heart of gold, and of course, he is full of life and shy. Thank you so much for talking to us, and welcome to India Today Television, Sunny Baji. सबसे पहले तो मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहूँगी, बोलना चाहूँगी, in fact, congratulations for completing 40 years in the industry. I remember बेताब अगस्त में रिलीज हुई थी 1983 में, और अब गदर आ रही है आपकी. How have you seen this evolution in cinema?
जब मैं ऐसे ही सोचता हूँ तो लगता वक्त ऐसे ही चला गया. लगता नहीं कि अभी भी मैं वो हूँ या नहीं हूँ. But then obviously जैसे आदमी अपने आप को सोचना शुरू कर देता है और फिर देखता है कि जो the decades which we have worked और जिस तरह से चलती गई हैं चीज़ें बदलती रही हैं. और as an actor obviously we keep growing, and with maturity you get to play maturer roles and better roles and different roles. So it has been a very interesting journey, and now Gadar 2 मेरी जो आ रही है इस भी 22 साल के बाद आ रही है. So it is, I'm excited. जो कि पहले तो मैं खुद घबराता था कि गदर की दूसरा पार्ट कैसे बन सकता है, क्योंकि वो खुद ही एक मुकम्मल फिल्म है. बट उन्होंने मुझे कहानी सुनाई जो अच्छी लगी. अगेन वही सेम सकीना तारा सिंह पूरे परिवार की कहानी है, और जैसे वो हमारी 1945 और 50 तक की film थी. This starts in 1971 जब there were issues between both the neighboring countries.
And if you could tell us something about Betab, your fond memory of that film, because since you're completing 40 years.
That will always be my favorite film, because that whole film was shot like a picnic, and it was so much fun, and every moment of that film I remember and then see how it is. That place where we had put up the set, that's become Betab Valley. People go there and this feel that area which they've seen in the film. So that film has been an iconic film which will always be, because that was a love story, but a macho man.
Yeah.
And a man with heart and with all the values.
For many of us who are not aware, where did you get your stage name Sunny Deol from? That's not your original name, right?
That was my name actually, because क्या हो जाता है जब सब families में हमारे यही तो होता, मैंने भी अपने बेटे का नाम पहले रॉकी रखा था, तो जब मैं हुआ था तो बीजी बाजी सब लोगों ने सनी सनी सनी